What if everything you've ever been told about growing your business is, well, just a complete culturally fabricated lie?
I mean, that is a terrifying question to start with.
Right. But just let that sink in for a second,
Yeah.
because we are talking about the foundational beliefs you probably hold about success.
Yeah, the stuff, your parents taught you or what your college professors lectured about.
Exactly. The things those motivational speakers are just screaming from the stages. We are all raised on this gospel that hard work, positive thinking, and just being incredibly good at what you do are the guaranteed tickets to success.
But what if that entire playbook is built on a massive myth?
So let's really unpack this today, because the tension here is incredibly real, and frankly, it's pretty terrifying.
Oh, absolutely. It's the entrepreneur's worst nightmare.
You can have the greatest product ever invented in your garage. I mean, you could have an attitude so relentlessly positive it actually makes people uncomfortable.
Yeah, we all know someone like that.
Right. And you could work harder than anyone you know, putting in 80, 90, 100 hours a week, sweating blood and tears into your craft, sacrificing your weekends.
Your health, your relationships, yeah.
All of it. And you can do everything right according to standard societal advice, and you can still starve.
Which is just a brutal reality to face.
It is. You can find yourself utterly broke, paralyzed by anxiety, just staring at the ceiling at 3 a.m., wondering how on earth you're going to make payroll.
Yeah, that 3 a.m. ceiling stare is all too common.
So today, we are going completely off script to shatter those comforting illusions. We were doing a deep dive into the introduction and first chapter of Dan Kennedy's Magnetic Marketing.
A fantastic, truly paradigm-shifting text.
It really is. Our mission today is to understand the foundational shift from simply running a business to building a predictable mechanical system that actually magnetically attracts customers.
Because for anyone listening who is interested in business or entrepreneurship or just taking control of their own financial destiny,
this shift is everything. It's the literal difference between leading a life of quiet desperation on a hamster wheel and achieving true, unshakable financial freedom.
the phrase you just used, the hamster wheel. I mean, that is the most accurate, agonizing description of where most entrepreneurs currently live.
It really is, isn't it?
Yeah. If we connect this to the bigger picture painted in the source material, we see a very specific, painful profile of the average business owner. And we're not talking about people who are lazy or selling bad products.
Right, these are high achievers.
Exactly. They've worked incredibly hard to create a somewhat reliable base of operations. They have, a trickle of revenues coming in, profit margins that are just barely keeping their heads above water.
But internally, it's a different story.
Oh, internally. Behind the forced smiles at those local networking events, it is pure chaos. They're existing in a state of chronic, low-grade terror.
Wow. Chronic terror, that's heavy, but it feels accurate.
And worse, they're overwhelmed by this relentless barrage of what the author calls advisors.
Oh, the advisors. You mean like the ad agency executives and the social media gurus?
Yeah, the media reps, the web designers, the self-proclaimed experts, all of them are constantly buzzing in the owner's ear, telling them they absolutely must be on this new platform.
Or they need to buy that new billboard or invest in some shiny new software trend.
Right. And the tragic part of this ecosystem is that these hardworking owners are burning through their precious capital on totally ineffective campaigns. They're just blindly throwing money at the wall and praying that something, literally anything, will stick.
They are running faster and faster, their legs are burning, but the scenery never changes, the financial pressure just never lifts.
Exactly. It's exhausting just talking about it.
Because, you start a business to buy freedom, right?
No.
Nobody starts a company because they want to work more hours for less pay than they made at their corporate job.
No, you started because you want agency.
Right. You want to be able to take a Tuesday afternoon off to watch your kid's school play without asking for permission. You want to stop worrying about how the mortgage is going to get paid.
And instead, you end up a prisoner to a monster of your own creation.
So, to navigate our way out of this trap today, we need to adopt a very specific, uncompromising mindset.
Yeah, the author actually refers to himself as the professor of harsh reality, which I love.
It's perfect. And I think that's exactly the lens we need to look through for this deep dive. We are going to have to drop our preconceptions, leave our professional egos out in the hallway, and just look at the brutal, unvarnished mathematical truth.
The truth of how money actually changes hands in the real-world marketplace.
Right. And what's fascinating here is that The very first harsh reality we have to face is often the most psychologically painful one for high achievers to swallow.
Oh, for sure. It requires the absolute dismantling of the meritocracy myth.
The meritocracy myth. Let's break that down because we've been fed this since we were kids.
We really have.
Oh.
From the time we're 5 years old, we are conditioned by the education system to believe that the world is a pure meritocracy. You sit in class, you study hard, you get the best grades, and you receive the gold star.
The rules are clear. Output is directly correlated to technical excellence.
Exactly. And we carry that right into adulthood. We get the best credentials, we hone our skills, until we are the absolute best in our field.
And the underlying psychological promise there is that the market will act like a teacher, right? It will grade our paper, see that we are the best, and automatically reward us with the most success and the most money.
But the source material breaks down this illusion with just ruthless efficiency. Better credentials, decades of experience, an unimpeachable work ethic, even being a fundamentally better human being.
Which are all noble traits, obviously.
Very noble,
Uh-huh.
but they are not magnets for money.
I have a really hard time swallowing this, and I know a lot of people listening will too. I mean, we've been told from kindergarten that if you do good work, you get rewarded. Are we really saying that quality isn't the best marketing strategy?
It is a tough pill to swallow.
I mean, the oldest cliche in the book is build a better mousetrap and the world will beat a path to your door.
Right, the classic mousetrap analogy.
Yeah, like if I am a dentist and I invest hundreds of thousands of dollars in the most advanced, pain-free laser techniques, or if my architectural firm creates the most sustainable, brilliant designs in the city, doesn't the market naturally recognize that excellence?
You would hope so, but
Doesn't word of mouth eventually take over? It just feels incredibly cynical to say that being objectively better at your craft doesn't matter.
well, it feels cynical because our brains desperately want the world to be a fair, logical place. We want virtue and skill to be universally recognized and instantly rewarded. We essentially want a justice system for economics.
Yeah, that makes sense. We want fairness.
But it's not cynical, it's just physics. Money doesn't have a conscience. If we look at the stark analogy provided in the text, the illusion of the meritocracy falls apart the second you step outside the classroom.
Okay, what's the analogy?
The author points at a glaring societal reality. If the world were a pure meritocracy based on virtue and hard work, well, we wouldn't have rich porn stars and poor pastors.
Wow. Okay. That is a jarring image.
It is, but it completely short-circuits the argument, doesn't it?
It really does, because
Mhm.
it forces you to separate morality and technical skill from economic reality.
Exactly. Money moves about for its own reasons, completely divorced from our judgments about who deserves it most. Need and deservingness have absolutely zero gravitational pull on capital.
Zero.
Zero. Greatness like having the most innovative product, being the most skilled practitioner, having the most sterling integrity, it has zero economic value if you cannot harness the power of attraction.
So you could be a paragon of virtue. Your business could be universally praised by the tiny handful of people who actually experience it.
But if you do not have a dependable, efficient, mechanical means of attracting a steady flow of qualified leads and buyers, you will starve.
It is as simple and as brutal as arithmetic.
Without a mechanism to attract attention and convert it into sales, your greatness is effectively invisible. It's like you're singing a beautiful aria in a soundproof room.
A soundproof room. That's a great way to put it. So, if being the best in the soundproof room doesn't work, how do we break out? Because listening to this, it feels like I need to completely audit my own professional identity.
You do. That's the first major step.
It seems like the core shift here isn't just about changing what you sell, but changing who you think you are.
Precisely. If you are a chiropractor, you have to stop waking up in the morning thinking, I am a chiropractor who adjusts spines.
Or if you own a bakery, you aren't just in the business of kneading dough and making sourdough.
Right. You are fundamentally in the business of marketing chiropractic services.
Huh.
You are in the business of marketing sourdough bread. It's a complete inversion of priorities.
You can't just pay your dues, open your doors, and wait for the universe to acknowledge your talent.
No, because the job that actually keeps the lights on, the job that builds wealth, isn't the baking or the bone cracking, it's the marketing.
That is the exact inversion required. It requires rewiring your professional ego, doesn't it?
Completely. You have to accept that being spectacular at what you do is merely the baseline expectation of the consumer. It's just the ante to sit at the poker table.
It's not the winning hand.
Exactly. The winning hand is the system you build to tell the world about what you do. There are thousands of mediocre businesses out there making millions of dollars simply because their marketing engine is vastly superior to the brilliant artisan down the street who refuses to market himself.
Okay, so if we accept this harsh reality that merit and hard work alone don't attract money and that we have to become marketers first, the natural human instinct is to look around and say, well, what is everyone else in my industry doing to survive?
Right. We naturally look for a template. We look at the crowd.
But looking at the crowd actually reveals a terrifying statistical reality about almost any industry you analyze. The text lays out the numbers, and they are incredibly sobering.
They really are. Let's look at the financial breakdown across professions. It doesn't matter if you're a plumber, a lawyer, or a software developer.
Right. The text says 1% create tremendous generational wealth, 4% do very well and live comfortably, 15% earn a good living, a solid middle-class existence.
But then we hit the bottom of the pyramid.
Yeah. 60% struggle endlessly, just grinding it out day after day, living invoice to invoice. And 20% fail completely, closing their doors and walking away in debt.
So mathematically, 80% of businesses are either failing or trapped in a cycle of permanent, exhausting struggle.
80%. So if we connect those statistics to the bigger picture, it raises an unavoidable question.
Which is, if 80% of the businesses in your specific industry are doing poorly or failing entirely, why on earth would you look around and copy their marketing strategies?
You wouldn't. I mean, it's like looking at a sinking ship and deciding to build your boat using their blueprints just because they're floating nearby.
It's actually worse than that.
Yeah.
It's not just that they are copying a sinking ship. They're copying the guesswork of a captain who has absolutely no idea why the ship is sinking.
Wow.
And yet, this mimetic behavior is exactly what almost every new entrepreneur engages in. They rent an office space, they look at their competitors' websites, they look at the local newspaper ads.
They see what kind of flyers the guy across town uses, and they just mimic them.
Right. They'd assume, subconsciously, that because everyone is doing it this way, there must be a hidden wisdom to it. It must be the industry standard.
But the source material points out a massive blind spot in our society. The standard educational system and even highly vaunted, expensive MBA programs largely fail to deliver the real-world, street-level survival skills needed to actually acquire a customer profitably.
They teach management theory. They teach how to read a corporate balance sheet. But they rarely teach the gritty psychological mechanics of how a small business gets a stranger to hand over a credit card.
Here's where it gets really interesting, because I think a lot of people fall into this trap without realizing it. It's like taking financial advice from a broke neighbor just because everyone else on your street is taking his advice.
That's a perfect analogy.
You look out your window, you see all your neighbors lined up at this guy's door, and you think, well, he must know the secret. Look at the line. But if you actually pull back the curtain and look at their bank accounts, they're all drowning in debt. Why would you join that line?
You are essentially guaranteeing that you'll become part of that 80% failure rate.
Exactly. But we have to understand why people join the line in the first place. Breaking away from the herd is deeply psychologically difficult.
Well, it goes against our evolutionary biology. For thousands of years, staying with a herd meant safety. Wandering off alone meant you got eaten by a predator.
But in business, the dynamics are completely reversed. If you stay in the herd, you get eaten by mediocrity.
And the author explicitly warns the reader about the social friction that comes with leaving the herd. When you decide to adopt the new, response-driven marketing systems we are going to discuss, you will inevitably face intense pushback.
From who?
Everyone. You will be criticized by your own employees who are used to the old way of doing things and fear change. You will be argued with by your peers at industry conferences.
I can definitely see that happening.
You might even be ridiculed by your friends and family who will look at your new marketing and say, that looks strange, or that's a lot of text, or that doesn't look as professional as the ads on TV.
The friction is real because you are challenging the established dogma. You are essentially telling the rest of the industry that their emperor has no clothes.
Precisely. You're making them uncomfortable. But the text offers a very pragmatic, almost ruthless comfort against that ridicule.
Which is?
Being a rich fool or a misguided renegade with millions of dollars in the bank absolutely trumps being thought of as normal, correct, and proper while you're barely scraping by to make your lease payments.
Oh, absolutely. I'll take being a rich fool any day.
You have to choose your hard. Is it harder to face the temporary ego-bruising friction of being different and being talked about? Or is it harder to live a life of permanent financial anxiety and eventual bankruptcy?
So practically speaking, this means you have to actively and ruthlessly evaluate the marketing norms of whatever industry you are in. If I'm starting a real estate agency, I need to look at the glossy mailers, the generic bus bench ads, the standard Instagram posts of my competitors, analyze them, and then resolve to do the exact opposite.
The exact opposite.
Because if my marketing looks like everyone else's, I become invisible. I blend into the background noise. And worse, I guarantee I'll get the results that everyone else gets, which is that 80% failure rate.
Right, but that actually brings up a huge paradox. If we know copying the local struggling herd is bad, the next logical step for a business owner is to look up,
They look at the winners. They look at massive, successful companies.
which explains why the next mistake is so unbelievably common and destructive.
Yes, this leads us directly into what the text identifies as one of the most fatal traps for small businesses,
Right.
attempting to emulate the mass advertising strategies of massive multinational corporations.
Let's use the classic example of a company like Coca-Cola.
Ah, the big dumb corporation trap. I love this concept because it perfectly explains why so much small business marketing feels so disconnected from reality.
It is entirely disconnected. Let's break down the mechanics of why this happens. When a local plumber or a freelance graphic designer sits down to figure out how to advertise, they don't have a textbook.
So what do they reference?
They pull from their own life experience as a consumer. They reference the ads they see every day on television or during the Super Bowl. They see a Coca-Cola commercial featuring beautifully animated polar bears drinking soda on a glacier.
Or one of those highly produced, emotional montages of diverse people singing in perfect harmony on a sunlit hillside.
Right. And the small business owner looks at that and thinks, ah, that is what marketing is. It's about creating an image. It's about being clever. It's about making people feel good about my brand.
So they try to replicate that feeling. The plumber buys an ad in the local paper, puts a big, professionally designed logo at the top, comes up with a clever pun for a slogan, and focuses entirely on looking established.
But the underlying agendas of these two entities, the massive corporation and the local plumber, are operating in entirely different universes, aren't they?
Vastly different. And this is where the arithmetic trap closes on the small business.
Let's look under the hood of Coca-Cola's marketing engine. They have an advertising budget measured in the billions of dollars. Their agenda for marketing is incredibly complex, multi-layered, and largely disconnected from an immediate, measurable surge in daily sales.
Because who are they actually advertising to?
First, they're advertising to appease their own board of directors, most of whom have very strong opinions, but zero actual expertise in direct marketing. Second, they are advertising to please their stockholders and Wall Street analysts. They're trying to project an image of stability, cultural relevance, and long-term brand equity to keep the stock price buoyed.
Third, they are trying to build a vague, long-term psychological association in the mind of the consumer.
And frankly, fourth, the advertising agencies they hire are often designing these campaigns to win creative awards for themselves at places like Cannes, prioritizing artistic cleverness over actual sales conversion.
Exactly. They're playing a very long, very slow, very expensive game of psychological inception. They want you to feel warm, fuzzy, and nostalgic so that maybe 6 months from now, when you're walking down the beverage aisle at the grocery store and you have a choice between a red can and a blue can, your subconscious nudges your hand toward the red one.
It's pure brand awareness. But now let's contrast that with the agenda of the small business owner. The text boils the small business agenda down to three incredibly urgent words.
Sell something, NW.
Yes, sell something NW.
Because the plumber doesn't have billions of dollars in reserve. When you look at the math, a small business just doesn't have the runway for image advertising.
Every single dollar spent on making people feel warm and fuzzy about the plumbing brand is a dollar stolen from this Friday's payroll.
It's a dollar taken away from next month's rent. They simply cannot afford to wait 6 months for a subconscious nudge to translate into a purchase.
And because they don't understand this fundamental difference in agendas, the text points out that small business owners become what it bluntly calls advertising victims.
Advertising victims, that's a strong phrase.
They become incredibly vulnerable prey for media salespeople. Just imagine this scenario. An ad rep from a local magazine or a digital marketing agency walks into the plumber's office.
The rep presents a beautiful media kit and starts selling a package based entirely on vanity metrics.
Exactly. They say things like, we are going to give you incredible reach. We're going to generate 100,000 impressions. We're going to build your brand awareness in the community.
And the business owner, wanting to be a real business, writes the check. because it sounds professional. It mirrors what they think Coca-Cola does.
But there is a fatal flaw in the system.
The flaw is that they can't trace the money. If you walk into that plumber's office a month later and ask, did that specific $2,000 magazine ad bring in more money than it cost? Which specific phone calls came from that ad? They are just guessing.
Yeah, they'll say, well, the phones have been ringing a bit more, so I think it's working.
And in business, if you are guessing, you are bleeding. You are losing.
The practical reality we have to extract from this is an ironclad, non-negotiable rule. As a small business owner, you cannot afford to spend a single dollar on image or branding advertising.
Leave that to the conglomerates with bottomless pockets.
Instead, you must only invest in marketing that is specifically designed to get a direct, measurable response from a targeted prospect.
Yeah. Every single dollar you send out into the world must be treated like an employee. It has a specific job to do, and that job is to march out into the marketplace, grab a customer by the collar, and bring back more dollars quickly and traceably.
If you cannot track exactly how many leads in sales a specific ad generated, you turn it off immediately.
Okay, let's really unpack this, because we have spent a significant amount of time tearing down the old structures.
We've done a lot of demolition here.
We shattered the meritocracy myth, realizing that being good isn't enough. We've exposed the danger of the 80-20 crowd, realizing that copying the herd is a blueprint for failure.
And we've warned against the big dumb corporation trap, realizing that brand awareness is a luxury we can't afford.
So the obvious question is, if we aren't relying on word of mouth, and we aren't copying our competitors, and we aren't running image ads, what on earth are we doing? How do we actually build this?
This brings us to the core shift, the mechanism the text calls magnetic marketing.
The author introduces this as an entirely alternative universe of marketing. And I want to be clear here, this isn't just about working harder. We already established that a 100-hour work week guarantees nothing.
And it's not even just about the vague concept of working smarter. It is about installing a very specific mechanical system.
The word system is the operative word here, isn't it? It's where most people get tripped up.
Because a system implies predictability, reliability, and most importantly, mechanics that operate independently of the business owner's daily mood, energy level, or personal charisma.
The text breaks down the two non-negotiable foundational principles of this alternative universe system. First, you must identify exactly who you want as a customer.
Not a demographic, not anyone with money, but a highly specific profile.
Second, you must get them to respond to you in a specific, measurable way. That's the entire architecture.
It sounds deceptively simple, but the execution requires absolute ruthless discipline. You are no longer standing on a mountaintop broadcasting a generic, "we are open for business" message to the masses. Just hoping someone, anyone, is listening.
You are crafting a highly specific message aimed exclusively at a highly specific individual demanding a highly specific action.
I think we need a metaphor to really visualize the mechanics of this, because the transition from traditional marketing to magnetic marketing is profound.
Okay, let's hear it.
Traditional marketing, the billboards, the generic newspaper ads, it feels like standing in a massive, crowded forest with a megaphone just yelling, "I sell acorns. Does anyone want acorns? Please buy my acorns."
You're exhausting yourself, you're annoying most of the animals in the forest, and you have no idea who is actually listening.
But magnetic marketing is entirely different. It's like silently laying down a highly visible, irresistible trail of premium acorns that leads directly into a very comfortable, well-lit enclosure.
Oh, I love that. You don't yell, you don't chase. You let the specific hunger of the squirrels do all the mechanical work for you.
That is an excellent analogy because it highlights the mechanical shift from pushing a message to pulling a prospect. Let's look under the hood of how that trail of acorns actually works in the real world.
Let's invent a hypothetical scenario. Let's take a local landscaper.
Okay, perfect. The traditional big dumb company approach is an ad that says, "Bob's Landscaping. We do lawns, trees, and patios. Call us for a free estimate," accompanied by a picture of a lawnmower.
It's generic. It asks for a massive commitment right away, like a phone call and an in-person estimate, and it targets no one specifically.
Right, it's just yelling into the forest.
Exactly. Now let's install a magnetic marketing system for Bob. Instead of a generic ad, Bob identifies a specific problem for a specific target.
He runs a small, targeted ad, maybe on Facebook, maybe in a highly local neighborhood newsletter, that says, "Attention Oakwood neighborhood homeowners. Are the 5 hidden diseases of summer killing your oak trees? Call this automated 24-hour recorded message to request our free diagnostic report.
Ah, okay. Let's break down the gears turning in that system. Instead of saying, hire me right now, he is offering a piece of valuable information.
He's utilizing a mechanism called the information gap. He introduces a potential threat-hidden tree diseases that the homeowner didn't know about, creating anxiety and curiosity.
And he offers a low-friction way to solve that anxiety, a free report via an automated recording.
Yes, and look at what mechanically happens when a homeowner calls that number to get the report. By taking that specific action, they have fundamentally shifted their status.
They are no longer an anonymous passerby in the forest.
They have voluntarily stepped forward, raised their hand, and identified themselves as a homeowner in Oakwood who is concerned about their trees. They have traded their contact information for Bob's expertise.
Bob didn't have to cold call them. He didn't have to chase them down the street. The prospect has pre-qualified themselves.
Bob is now only talking to a captive audience member who has already demonstrated a specific interest in exactly what Bob knows how to fix.
And this causes a massive psychological shift for the business owner, doesn't it? Because think about what happens when you chase someone in real life.
Mm.
If you run at someone on the street, what is their natural biological instinct?
They run away. They put up their guard immediately.
Exactly. If you are cold calling, if you are aggressively pushing your services on people who haven't asked for them, you trigger their defensive reflexes.
They view you as a nuisance, a predator trying to take their money.
But when you use magnetic marketing, you flip the script entirely. You position yourself as the expert, the doctor, the educator. When they request your information, they are inviting you into their life.
You are no longer a pesky salesperson trying to convince a skeptic. You are a welcomed advisor talking to, as the text says, ready to buy leads.
The psychological relief this provides just cannot be overstated. We started this deep dive talking about the hamster wheel, the sleepless nights, the constant crushing anxiety of not knowing where the next dollar is coming from.
When you install this system, that specific anxiety begins to evaporate. The author uses another great analogy, the faucet.
The faucet, yes. Let's talk about that.
When you have a reliable magnetic marketing system, a lead magnet, a direct response ad, a clear call to action, you have built a machine with a valve.
Yeah.
If you have a slow week and need more leads, you turn the faucet up. You run the ad more often.
And if you are at capacity and your crew can't handle any more work, you turn the faucet off. You gain mechanical control over your lead flow.
Which means for the first time, you actually possess control over your financial destiny.
So what does this mean practically for you listening to this right now? It means you need to conduct an immediate, ruthless audit of your current marketing efforts.
Look at everything you are spending money or time on. Look at your website, your brochures, your social media. Is it just throwing your name and logo out to the general public?
Is it just a digital business card saying, we exist, please give us money?
If your marketing lacks a highly targeted audience and a specific, compelling request for a response, if it doesn't offer a free report, a diagnostic checklist, a video training in exchange for contact info, then it is leaking money.
You need to turn it off today. You need to stop yelling into the forest and start laying down the acorns.
But laying down those acorns requires us to look very closely at the specific flavor of the acorn, which brings us to a crucial vulnerability in most businesses.
The text delivers a stark, terrifying warning. The absolute worst number in business is 1.
1. It sounds so innocuous, but it's incredibly dangerous.
It is the number of fragility. One key employee who holds all the institutional knowledge of your operations. One massive client account that represents 80% of your gross revenue.
One single media channel like Facebook ads, or a specific referral partner that generates all your incoming leads. Operating on the number 1 is a recipe for sudden catastrophic disaster.
Right, because the moment the wind changes, you're wiped out. If Facebook arbitrarily changes its algorithm overnight and your account gets banned,
or if that one massive client gets bought out by a competitor and fires you,
or if your star salesperson decides to start their own firm, your business goes from profitable to bankrupt in 24 hours. The foundation is essentially made of glass.
So the obvious question we have to answer is, how do we diversify? How do we build robust security?
And perhaps most importantly, in a marketplace that is deafeningly loud and incredibly crowded, how do we separate ourselves from the noise so we aren't just viewed as another interchangeable commodity, forced to compete solely on who can offer the lowest price?
The expert answer and the ultimate mechanical tool for creating this separation is the unique selling proposition, or the USP.
The USP. This is the absolute cornerstone of your magnetic message. A strong USP is not a slogan. It is not a cute catchphrase.
It is a fundamental business argument that answers one vital overriding question in the mind of your prospect. Why should I choose to do business with you versus any and every other provider of the same product or service, including doing nothing at all?
If you cannot answer that question clearly, concisely, and compellingly, you do not have a strong business. You are just floating on the tide of the economy.
I love the example the text uses to unpack this because it's so universally understood and we can really dissect the mechanics of why it worked. Let's look at Domino's Pizza.
Specifically, their classic original USP that built their empire. Fresh hot pizza delivered in 30 minutes or less, guaranteed.
Let's break down why this is arguably one of the greatest, most effective USPs in modern business history.
It is brilliant, precisely because of what it doesn't say. Look at what they omitted.
They never once claimed to be the best tasting pizza in town. They didn't mention using high-quality, organic, locally sourced ingredients. They didn't talk about a secret family recipe brought over from the old country by their grandmother.
Why? Because the specific, hyper-targeted market they were going after didn't care about any of those things in the moment of purchase.
Exactly. Who were they targeting? Ravenously hungry, impatient, probably broke college students late on a Friday night.
Let's put ourselves in that dorm room. It's 11 p.m., the students are starving, the dialogue in their head isn't, "I desire a culinary masterpiece crafted with artisanal mozzarella."
The dialogue is incredibly primal. Hungry. Food. Now. The specific anxiety they have is calling a pizza place, being told it'll be there in 45 minutes, and then waiting an hour and a half while they starve.
Yes, and Domino's engineered their entire business model, not just their marketing, but their actual operations, to solve that exact specific anxiety.
They promised speed and reliability, and they gave that promise teeth with a financial guarantee. If it's late, it's free. They matched their message perfectly to the market's most urgent, immediate pain point.
Now, imagine a local, authentic Italian pizzeria trying to market to that same dorm room by talking about their imported herbs. The message completely misses the mark because it doesn't solve the prospect's primary anxiety, speed.
If we look at other examples grounded in the text, we see how this architecture of the USP applies across vastly different industries. Let's look at J.K. Rowling and the Harry Potter phenomena.
How did she uniquely benefit independent bookstore owners? She didn't just write a good fantasy book. Thousands of authors write good books.
She created a cultural phenomenon that drove massive, concentrated, late-night foot traffic. The midnight release parties were a unique proposition that benefited the bookstores immensely.
She wasn't just selling a product, she was creating a unique ecosystem of benefit that drove sales far beyond just her one title. She gave them an event.
And then there's the incredibly powerful example of Bill Hammond, the lawyer. This is a masterclass in niching down and using a USP to escape the commodity trap.
Bill didn't just market himself as a general elder law attorney or an estate planner. There are thousands of those in every major city, and they all look exactly the same in the phone book.
Instead, he created a highly specific, emotionally resonant niche by coining and trademarking the term Alzheimer's law.
That is just brilliant positioning, because think about the psychological impact of that. By calling it Alzheimer's law, he instantly, mechanically separated himself from every other generic lawyer in his state.
He did. He wasn't just selling standard legal documents, trusts, wills, power of attorney was what every other lawyer sells.
He was offering a highly specialized, deeply empathetic solution to families who are dealing with a very specific, terrifying, heartbreaking crisis.
When a family gets an Alzheimer's diagnosis for a parent, they're in a state of panic. They don't want a generalist. They want a specialist who understands exactly what they're going through.
He positioned himself not just as a vendor of legal services, but as a specialized advocate, a guide, and essentially a hero for those specific families.
This allowed him to use the exact lead generation strategies of magnetic marketing we discussed. He wasn't advertising legal services. He was advertising free workshops or reports specifically about navigating the legal nightmares of an Alzheimer's diagnosis.
Speaking directly to the profound pain and anxiety of that exact demographic.
So how does a listener actually construct this for themselves? It's time to do some deep strategic thinking. You have to stop relying on generic labels.
You need to sit down, ideally with the blank piece of paper and no distractions, and define exactly what you do differently. You have to figure out how your specific process, your specific guarantee, or your specific delivery method uniquely benefits your chosen market.
You have to ask yourself, how can I niche down further? If I'm a fitness trainer, can I stop being a personal trainer and become the postpartum recovery specialist for working mothers?
How can you position yourself so uniquely that you completely avoid the race to the bottom in price wars? Because if your only differentiator is that you are the cheapest option, someone, somewhere, will always figure out a way to undercut you by a dollar, and you will eventually go out of business.
You must build a USP that makes price irrelevant to your specific customer. It requires an immense amount of empathy for your target customer.
You have to move beyond what you want to sell them and truly understand what they secretly, privately desire most. What is the specific anxiety that keeps them awake at night?
Once you identify that, you build your entire proposition, your entire business argument around delivering the specific transformation that relieves that anxiety. When you do that, you are no longer selling a service. You are selling a highly coveted result.
Okay, we have covered a massive amount of ground today, dismantling deeply held cultural myths and laying down the hard, unvarnished realities of what it actually takes to grow a business sustainably.
We've gone from the pain of the hamster wheel to the mechanics of the faucet.
Let's tie all these core concepts together into the soul of this chapter. The ultimate synthesis, the paradigm shift you have to embrace is this. Having a great product, being highly skilled at your craft, working yourself to the bone, these are merely the baseline costs of entry.
They do not and will not guarantee you a single dime of income in the real world.
The profound insight you need to walk away with is that your true business isn't the physical good or the technical service you provide. Your true business is the systematic, response-driven marketing of that good or service.
If you continue to act like the 80% of the herd, if you continue to chase the masses, trying to look like a generic corporate entity with cute branding ads, you will struggle.
But if you stop chasing and start mechanically, magnetically attracting your specific targeted audience through a predictable system built on a unique selling proposition, you take absolute control of your lead flow.
And when you control your lead flow, you control your financial destiny. You step off the hamster wheel for good.
It is a profoundly liberating realization, even if it requires a harsh audit of your current beliefs.
And now that we've shattered the illusions of traditional image-based advertising and established the foundational power of a unique selling proposition and targeted attraction, you might be looking back at your own track record with some frustration.
You might be wondering exactly why your past marketing efforts, the campaigns you spent so much time, hope, and money on, failed so spectacularly when put to the test.
That anatomy of failure, the specific ways we sabotage our own marketing, is a painful but completely necessary reality we will dissect in our next discussion.
Until next time, I want to leave you with this final provocative thought to mull over. If your business suddenly lost its absolute biggest client tomorrow morning, would your current marketing system be able to mechanically attract and replace them by Friday? Or would you just be sitting at your desk, staring at the phone, desperately, hopelessly waiting for it to ring? You know, you could literally have the cure for cancer sitting in your garage right now.
Right. Just neatly packaged, totally flawless, and ready to ship.
Exactly. I mean, you could have a work ethic that would absolutely terrify, like a Victorian factory owner.
Yeah, working 24/7.
You could have the most articulate, compelling elevator pitch ever conceived. And yet, if you rely on the traditional rules of business growth to get that product out there, into the hands of the public, you are still going to go completely bankrupt.
It's the single most bitter pill that any entrepreneur has to swallow, really.
Yeah.
It's that realization that the marketplace is just incredibly apathetic to your inherent quality. I mean, the world does not care how good your product is.
They really don't.
Not until you actually force them to care through some mechanism of attraction.
So welcome to the deep dive. Today we are dismantling what is probably the biggest lie you were ever taught in business school. Or frankly, the biggest lie you've been taught since kindergarten.
Oh, absolutely.
The idea that just being better is enough. We're getting into the foundational principles of Dan Kennedy's paradigm-shifting approach to growth. We're going to look really closely at why almost everything the average business owner does to get customers is, well, it's actively sabotaging their survival.
Yeah, we're talking about why chasing clients is actually a biological trigger for rejection.
Wow, yeah.
And why mimicking the marketing of giant corporations is just financial suicide.
So the goal today for you listening is to learn how to flip the script entirely. We want to show you how to build a mechanism that stops chasing and, starts attracting.
And I want to be clear, this requires a complete rewiring of how you view your daily operations.
That's a big shift.
It's massive. Because, look, if you're listening to this and you're feeling that deep, not in your stomach frustration of doing everything right, delivering incredible service, having the absolute best widget in town.
But you're still stressing over payroll.
Exactly. Stressing over payroll or wondering where that next client is actually coming from. I mean, the problem isn't your product. The problem is your reliance on a complete myth.
Let's start right there with this myth of meritocracy, because it is so deeply ingrained in us, right?
Oh, from day one.
From the moment we enter the school system, we are conditioned to believe in this direct correlation between quality and reward.
Right. If you study the hardest, you get the A.
Yeah. If you're the fastest runner, you get the gold medal. So
Mm.
naturally, we just sort of extrapolate that into adulthood. We think, if I build the absolute best mousetrap, if my consulting is the most insightful, or if my bakery uses the finest organic flour.
The market will just magically recognize that quality and beat a pass to your door.
Right. And that assumption is precisely what fills the graveyards of small businesses, isn't it?
It really is. The reality, the harsh reality, is that we do not live in a pure meritocracy. Money just moves around the economy for its own reasons.
Yeah.
And neither objective quality nor need nor even like deservingness are magnetic to it.
That's a tough thing to accept.
It is. But you can have a positive attitude that would make a motivational speaker blush. You could have a wall full of Ivy League credentials, and you will still starve if you don't have a predictable system for acquiring customers.
I really want to dig into the psychology of why we cling to this better is better myth, because I don't think it's just naivete. It feels almost like a defense mechanism.
Oh, it completely is a defense mechanism.
Well, right. Like if I believe that my superior product will eventually win out, it kind of excuses me from having to learn the messy, uncomfortable science of marketing.
Exactly. You don't have to face the market.
Yeah, I can just stay in my workshop or, my kitchen or behind my laptop, just perfecting the thing I love doing. And I can tell myself that the universe will eventually reward my craftsmanship.
That is such a brilliant way to frame it. Because marketing, and especially direct response marketing, it requires putting yourself out there.
You have to be vulnerable.
You do. You have to face immediate, quantifiable rejection. Perfecting your product in isolation. That's safe. It feels really productive.
It feels like work.
Yes. But being a master technician in your field has absolutely zero value if you don't have a dependable, efficient means of attracting a flow of qualified leads. I mean, without a mechanism for customer acquisition, you don't actually own a business.
Wait, what do you own then?
You're simply the custodian of a well-kept secret.
Oh, wow. The custodian of a well-kept secret. That stings, but it's so true. So if relying on our inherent quality is a trap, what is the alternative? Because the immediate instinct for most business owners, once they realize they actually have to market themselves, is to just look out the window, see what the successful companies are doing, and copy them.
Right, the imitation game.
Yeah. I see Nike commercials during the Super Bowl. I see Coca-Cola billboards on the highway. I see these giant tech companies buying naming rights to stadiums. The logical conclusion is, well, they're billionaires. They must know what they're doing.
I should model my marketing after theirs,
Yeah.
just on a smaller budget.
Exactly.
And that is the second fatal trap. It's what we call the big brand illusion. Attempting to mimic the mass advertising strategies of massive corporations is literally the fastest way for a small business to bleed out its cash reserves.
So why doesn't it work? Let's break down those unit economics. Because on the surface, an ad is an ad, right? The goal is to get people to buy your stuff, whether you are Nike or the local shoe store. So why can't the local shoe store just run a tiny, scaled-down version of a Nike ad?
Well, because the goal of a massive corporation's marketing is rarely to sell something today.
Yeah.
Really. Let's look at the pressures facing the chief marketing officer, the CMO of a multi-billion-dollar conglomerate. First of all, they have a board of directors they have to appease.
Right.
And these board members might have zero background in marketing, but they have very strong, very subjective opinions on how the company should, look and feel.
Make the logo bigger, that kind of stuff.
Exactly. I don't like that shade of blue. Second, they have to appease stockholders and institutional investors on Wall Street. Those people want to see the company acting like a dominant industry leader.
It's a flex.
It's totally a flex. And third, the advertising agencies they hire are highly motivated to win artistic awards at festivals in Cannes.
So their marketing is actually this weird cocktail of corporate politics, stock price manipulation, and artistic vanity.
Precisely. Their primary objective is often just brand identity or brand awareness. They're trying to create this emotional aura around a logo. Now contrast that with your agenda as an entrepreneur.
Very different.
Completely different. You don't have a board of directors dissecting the color palette of your mailer. You don't have stockholders to soothe. You have a mortgage to pay. You have payroll to meet on Friday.
Yeah, your goal is not to win a design award. Your goal is to generate a measurable, profitable response right now.
Yes. And the numbers behind the big brand approach are staggering. If we look at a company like Coca-Cola, they spend roughly $4 billion a year on advertising. $4 billion.
$4 billion? That's just incomprehensible.
And they spend that money to achieve a very specific brute force objective: omnipresence. Their strategy is to reach every single parched throat on the planet repeatedly until reaching for a red can becomes a subconscious reflex.
It's like brainwashing through repetition.
Exactly. That is a game of financial attrition.
And if I'm a local dentist or a freelance graphic designer or, a roofer, and I try to play a game of financial attrition,
You'll lose.
yeah, I'm going to lose. I don't have $4 billion. I might have $4,000.
Which is why buying brand awareness is suicidal for you. Think about the Goodyear blimp.
Oh, that's a great example.
Right. When Goodyear flies a massive, extremely expensive blimp over a crowded football stadium, they are entirely aware that out of the 60,000 people sitting in the stands, maybe a few dozen actually need new tires that specific week.
Yeah, at most.
And they know that absolutely nobody is going to stand up in the middle of the third quarter, leave the stadium, and drive to a mechanic to buy tires because they looked up at the sky.
So it's purely atmospheric.
Entirely. It's institutional advertising. But if you are a small business owner, every single dollar you spend on marketing must have a strict job description.
I love that. A job description.
Yes. You have to think of your marketing dollars as employees. If you hired a salesperson, paid them a salary, and at the end of the month asked, "Hey, how many sales did you make?" And they replied, "None, but I raised our brand awareness."
I'd fire them on the spot.
Exactly. You would fire them immediately. Yet business owners tolerate this exact behavior from their advertising budgets all the time.
Because the advertising agencies selling them the ads have convinced them that getting their name out there is somehow a valid metric of success.
It's the ultimate scam of the traditional advertising world, really. If an agency sells you a brand awareness campaign, they can never be fired for poor performance.
Wow. Wait, because there's no metric.
Exactly.
Yeah.
If your sales don't go up, they just tell you, well, you haven't built enough awareness yet. You need to buy more ads.
That's so manipulative.
It is. So the paradigm shift you have to make is moving entirely to direct response marketing. You buy a response, a click, a call, an email sign-up, a purchase, and you gratefully accept brand building as a free incidental byproduct.
You never pay for brand building and just hope for a response.
Never.
Okay, so if I am cutting out the vanity metrics, right, and I am abandoning this idea of broadcasting my logo to the entire city just to be seen, I run into a very practical problem. If I'm not shouting at everybody, how do I know who I'm supposed to be talking to?
And this brings us to the concept of the target market mismatch. Because the moment you decide to demand a direct return on your investment, you are forced to confront the mathematical reality of consumer readiness.
Okay, lay that out for us.
There's a deeply researched metric in direct marketing that suggests at any given moment, only about 5% of a market is actually equipped intellectually, emotionally, and financially to act on a buying decision right now.
Wait, let me make sure I am grasping the gravity of that number. 5%.
What's that 5%?
So you are saying that if there are 1,000 people in my town who technically own homes with roofs, and I am a roofing contractor, only 50 of them are actually in a psychological or financial state to hire me today.
That is the reality. The other 950 people might need a roof in 3 years. Or they might be completely broke. Or they might be renting the house out and relying on a property manager.
Right.
If you buy a billboard or a generic radio ad that reaches all 1,000 people, 95% of your marketing budget is instantly evaporating. It is falling on totally deaf ears.
But I mean, isn't that leaving money on the table? Like, if I only target the 5% with active leaks today, aren't I ignoring the 95% who might need a roof next year? If I don't start educating them now, they won't think of me when the time comes.
See, that sounds perfectly logical until you look at the cash flow constraints of a small business.
Yeah, okay, fair point.
You simply do not have the financial runway to educate a prospect for 12 months while waiting for them to enter that 5% window. You will run out of cash before they ever pick up the phone.
Yeah, you'll be bankrupt by the time they need a roof.
Exactly. Your survival depends on hyper-focusing your resources exclusively on the demographic that is experiencing acute pain or desire right now.
That makes perfect
Hmm.
sense.
Oh.
It's the difference between like watering a massive field, hoping a few scattered seeds sprout, versus watering a single highly fertile garden bed.
Perfectly said.
But identifying that 5% requires way more than just standard demographics, doesn't it? Like, it's
Okay.
not enough to say, my target market is homeowners aged 35 to 55 with an income over $70,000.
Not even close. Demographics give you the outline of a person, but they don't give you the engine that drives their behavior.
Hmm.
To truly capture that 5%, you have to master what we call the internal conversation.
The internal conversation, what does that look like?
You have to figure out what they are secretly desiring, what is keeping them awake at 3 in the morning. And you have to inject your marketing message directly into that specific private dialogue.
There is a classic business story that perfectly illustrates this, and it involves the early days of Domino's Pizza.
Oh, yes. A perfect example.
If you think about the generic pizza market, everyone competes on the exact same variables, right? Our sauce is sweeter, our crust is crispier, our cheese is more authentic. It's just an endless debate over quality.
Which goes right back to the better is better myth we started with.
Exactly. But Domino's didn't target the broad demographic of people who like pizza. They hyper-focused on a very specific subset of the market in a very specific situation.
The college kid.
Right. Imagine a college student in a dorm room. It's almost midnight. They are cramming for a final exam. They haven't eaten since noon. What is the internal conversation happening in that student's head?
I can assure you, that student is not sitting there pondering the origin of the tomatoes or wondering whether the mozzarella was imported from a specific region in Italy. Their internal dialogue is incredibly primitive. It is simply, I am starving, I am tired, I need hot food, and I need it immediately so I can get back to studying.
Exactly. The acute pain is hunger and lack of time. The quality of the food is actually secondary to the speed and reliability of the delivery. And Domino's recognized this.
They did.
They crafted a unique selling proposition that completely ignored the quality debate and intercepted that exact internal conversation. Fresh, hot pizza delivered to your door in 30 minutes or less, guaranteed.
It was brilliant. They didn't claim it was the best pizza. They didn't claim it was a gourmet experience. They just promised to solve the immediate burning problem of the 5% of the market that needed food now. They entered the conversation the prospect was already having with themselves.
There's another analogy used constantly in marketing circles that goes even deeper into the psychology. The hardware store analogy. You've probably heard the saying, people don't want to buy a 3/4-inch drill bit. They want a 3/4-inch hole.
It's foundational. The customer doesn't care about the carbon steel alloy of the drill bit, or the threading, or the RPM capacity. The drill bit is merely the toll they have to pay to get the hole.
But if we apply the concept of the internal conversation, even the hole isn't what they actually want.
Right.
The hole is just another step in the process. Why do they want the hole? Because they are trying to hang a heavy, ornate mirror in their living room. And why do they want to hang the mirror?
Because they are hosting a dinner party this weekend.
Yes.
Yeah.
And they want their friends to walk into their home and be impressed. They want to feel pride. They want the status of being a capable homeowner with a beautiful house.
That is the real internal conversation. The secret desire is pride and status. The fear is embarrassment or feeling incompetent.
Exactly.
If you are a hardware store and your marketing focuses entirely on the technical specifications of the drill bit, you are forcing the customer to do the mental gymnastics of translating carbon steel alloy into a living room that makes my neighbors jealous.
And most consumers will not do that work for you.
They won't. You have to market to the end result. You have to market to the pride.
It gets even more profound when the stakes are higher. Let's look at the medical device industry, specifically hearing aids.
This is a powerful one.
If you look at standard hearing aid advertising, it is overwhelmingly focused on features. Our new microchip reduces background noise by 40%, or our device is 30% smaller and practically invisible.
Yeah. Or they focus on surface-level benefits. Hear your favorite television shows clearly again. Or hear the music of your youth the way it was meant to be heard.
Which completely misses the terrifying internal conversation that a senior citizen experiencing hearing loss is actually having.
It really does.
Yeah.
Because what is the real visceral fear keeping that person awake at night? It's not that they might miss a punchline on a sitcom.
No.
The real fear is sitting at the Thanksgiving dinner table, surrounded by their children and grandchildren, and having absolutely no idea what the conversation is about. The fear is smiling and nodding blankly and seeing the concerned looks exchanged between their kids.
The fear is that their family will start to think they are losing their cognitive abilities, that they are becoming a burden. And the ultimate unspoken terror at the absolute bottom of that internal conversation is the nursing home.
Yes.
The fear that because they can no longer communicate effectively, their independence will be stripped away and they will be sent away to a facility.
It's incredibly heavy, but it is the absolute truth of the human condition. The product you are selling is a small piece of plastic with a speaker inside, but the thing the customer is actually buying is dignity. They are buying continued connection with their family. They are buying the preservation of their independence.
If you understand that, your entire marketing approach transforms. You stop writing headlines about microchips and decibel levels, and you start writing headlines that say, "Worried your family thinks you're ignoring them." Discover the discrete solution that keeps you in the conversation and in control of your life.
That is how you capture the 5%. You show them that you understand their private pain better than anyone else.
But this requires a level of empathy and research that most business owners completely skip, right? They are so in love with their own product that they forget to study the emotional landscape of the person buying it.
Absolutely. They get tunnel vision.
So let's assume a listener does this work. They identify their 5%. They map out the deepest fears and desires of that demographic. They know exactly what the internal conversation is. We now hit a massive tactical roadblock. How do you actually approach them?
Right.
Because knowing what someone wants doesn't mean you can just run up and shove it in their face.
In fact, running up and shoving it in their face is a biological trigger for them to run away. This is the skepticism barrier and the inherent flaw of chasing prospects.
I really want to explore the psychology of pursuit because it is so deeply hardwired into us. If you are walking down the street and someone starts running toward you, your heart rate spikes.
Immediate panic.
Your defenses go up. It doesn't matter if they are running to hand you $1 million. Your primal brain assumes you are being hunted.
We refer to it as the instinct to skedaddle. It is an automatic, involuntary withdrawal. And yet, this is exactly the dynamic most businesses create with their marketing. They operate from a position of pursuit.
They're constantly chasing.
They buy lists and cold call people during dinner. They send unsolicited pitches on LinkedIn. They blast promotional emails shouting, "Buy now! Discount ending soon!"
Yeah.
They are metaphorical predators, and the market reacts like prey.
The classic example is the car dealership.
Oh, perfect.
You decide you need a new car. You do your research. You drive to the lot with the explicit intention and the financial capability to purchase a vehicle that day. You park your car, you step onto the pavement, and you see a salesperson sprint out of the showroom doors, making a beeline straight for you. What is the very first thing you say when they ask if they can help you?
I'm just looking.
Exactly. I'm just looking. It's a complete lie.
A total lie.
You aren't just looking. You literally came to buy. But the moment you perceived you were being chased, you threw up a shield. Why do we do that? Why do we lie to the person who has the exact thing we want to buy?
Because giving the salesperson information is giving them leverage. You know that the moment you admit you are a buyer, you lose control of the interaction. You are entering a negotiation where the other person's goal is to extract maximum money from you.
We live in an era of unprecedented skepticism, don't we?
We really do. Trust in institutions, trust in advertising, and trust in salespeople is at a historical nadir. Consumers have been burned, scammed, and disappointed too many times.
So asking for the sale immediately is the equivalent of walking up to a stranger in a coffee shop and asking them to marry you.
Exactly.
You are asking them to take a massive leap of faith to hand over their hard-earned money before you have established a single ounce of credibility or trust.
It is a high-friction, low-probability strategy. If you cannot chase them, and you cannot ask for the marriage on the first date, you must construct a mechanism of attraction. You have to reverse the polarity of the relationship.
Okay, reverse the polarity.
Right. Instead of you pursuing them, you have to engineer a scenario where they voluntarily raise their hand and pursue you.
How do we actually do that mechanically? Like, what does it look like in practice to attract rather than chase?
It is accomplished through the use of a lead generation magnet. This is a low-risk, high-value piece of information or bait that you offer to your target market for free in exchange for their contact information and their attention.
Now, I want to push back on this heavily because this is the exact moment where a lot of highly skilled professionals, consultants, lawyers, contractors will just roll their eyes.
Oh, I hear it all the time.
They hear give away free information, and their immediate fear is, If I take my 20 years of expertise, package my best secrets into a free report or a diagnostic video, and just hand it out, I am going to attract nothing but tire kickers. People will take my free advice, fix the problem themselves, and I will have just cannibalized my own business.
It's a very common fear. But it fundamentally misunderstands what the market is actually buying, and it misunderstands the purpose of the magnet. First of all, the information is already free.
That's true.
Whatever secret you think you possess is already available on Google or YouTube. You are not selling information, you are selling implementation, speed, certainty, and customization.
That is a crucial distinction. Knowing how to change a transmission conceptually is very different from actually dropping the transmission out of a truck in your driveway.
Precisely. I can watch a video on it, but I'm still hiring a mechanic. But more importantly, the lead generation magnet is a filtering mechanism. It is designed to solve the problem of the 5% we discussed earlier.
Oh, okay, walk me through how it filters.
If you run a generic ad for a real estate agency that says, "We are the best realtors in town, call us to sell your house," you are asking for a massive commitment. But suppose instead you offer a free downloadable report titled 14 Costly Mistakes Homeowners Make That Drive Down Their Property Value Just Before Selling.
Okay.
The only people on earth who will take the time to request, download, and read that specific report are people who are actively currently thinking about selling their home.
Wow. Yeah, nobody else cares about that.
Exactly. You have just used the magnet to force the 5% to identify themselves. You have lowered the threshold barrier so significantly that their skepticism doesn't trigger. It is very easy to say yes to a free, helpful PDF. And look at what happens to the power dynamic the moment they request that report.
You weren't chasing them anymore.
You are no longer the annoying salesperson interrupting their day. You are now the welcomed expert, the authoritative author, delivering the exact solutions they privately requested. They invited you into their inbox or their mailbox. You have established credibility and trust before a single dollar has been discussed.
It completely reframes the relationship. You transition from a vendor begging for a transaction to a trusted advisor offering a diagnosis.
Exactly.
So we've created the magnet, we've stopped chasing, people are raising their hands, downloading the report, giving us their email addresses. It feels like a massive win. But this is exactly where the trapdoor opens for most entrepreneurs. Because what happens next is where the entire system usually collapses.
Yes. Getting the lead is merely the opening move in a chess match. But because most businesses treat it as the finish line, they succumb to the tragedy of the roller coaster. This is the lack of a predictable system.
The roller coaster of feast and famine, that is the defining psychological trauma of small business ownership.
Oh, without a doubt.
Let's trace the financial and emotional arc of this roller coaster, because I know people listening will feel this in their bones. Month 1, you look at your bank account and things are dire. You have no clients. Panic sets in. So you start frantic, chaotic marketing.
The hustle phase.
Right. You throw money at Facebook ads, you go to 3 networking events a week, you discount your services. It's the metaphorical equivalent of throwing Jell-O at a wall, just hoping a piece of it sticks.
And because you are exerting so much chaotic energy, eventually something does stick. A few leads convert. You get a sudden influx of customers.
Which leads to month 2, the overwhelm. Now you have all this client work to fulfill. You are working 14-hour days just to deliver the product or service. You are working so hard in the business that you completely stop working on the business.
Right. The marketing completely stops.
You turn off the ads to save money. You stop going to the networking events because you don't have time. You tell yourself, well, I'm too busy to market right now anyway.
That is the peak of the roller coaster. But it is an illusion of safety. Because while you are busy fulfilling those orders, your pipeline is slowly evaporating.
And then comes month 3. You finish the projects, you deliver the final products, you finally catch your breath, you look around and you realize the phone isn't ringing. There is no one waiting in line.
And the terrifying descent begins. You crash back to zero, the panic returns, and you start frantically throwing Jell-O at the wall all over again.
It sounds so exhausting.
It is an exhausting, unsustainable way to live. And worst of all, because you were just throwing Jell-O, trying random tactic without tracking, you have no data. You don't actually know which of your chaotic actions in month 1 brought the clients in. Was it the Facebook ad? Was it the networking event? You have no idea, so you can't predictably repeat it.
You are flying completely blind, which makes you incredibly vulnerable to the next media salesperson who walks through your door promising that, TikTok ads or direct mail will solve all your problems.
Relying on word of mouth or random bursts of marketing, is like trying to water a massive crop by waiting for rain.
Yeah.
It is wonderful when it happens, and you should be grateful for it. But if you rely on it, your crops are going to die during a drought. You cannot build a financial future on the weather. You need a sprinkler system, a rigid, mechanical system that you can turn on the moment the soil gets dry and turn off when the ground is saturated.
There is an example in the foundational concepts here, often referred to as mistake 9, the lack of follow-up, that illustrates the sheer financial destruction of not having this sprinkler system. It's the restaurant example. Let's walk through this and let's actually do the math on the loss because it is staggering.
Imagine a couple deciding to try a brand new high-end restaurant in their neighborhood. They walk in, the ambiance is perfect, the waiter is attentive, the steak is cooked flawlessly. They have a genuinely wonderful, memorable evening. They pay a $200 bill, leave a generous tip, and walk out the front door. And the restaurant does absolute nothing.
No one asked for an email address when they made the reservation.
Nope.
The waiter didn't drop a card with the check saying, "Hey, join our culinary club for a complimentary appetizer on your next visit."
They captured zero data. They let a highly qualified, proven buyer, someone who has already demonstrated they enjoy the product and have the money to pay for it, vanish into the night. They are now relying entirely on the hope that the couple will organically remember to come back months from now. That is what Dan Kennedy calls criminal waste.
Let's look at the lifetime value of that failure. Let's say that if the restaurant had captured their email and set up an automated system to send them a gentle reminder every month, maybe an invite to a wine tasting or a free dessert for their anniversary, that couple would have returned 6 times a year.
Easily.
That's $1,200 a year in revenue. Over a 10-year run of living in that neighborhood, that is $12,000 in lifetime value from one couple.
And the restaurant lost that $12,000 because they didn't have a system to capture a single email address. They spent thousands of dollars on the signage, the decor, and the initial advertising to get that couple in the door the first time. And they squandered the entire return on investment because they didn't have a follow-up mechanism.
It makes you sick to think about how much money businesses bleed out this way. So how do we build the sprinkler system? What is the actual architecture of a business that never lets a lead vanish?
It requires implementing a rigid 3-part mechanism. You have to compartmentalize your business into 3 distinct machines that run simultaneously. Phase 1 is lead generation. This is the continuous, predictable distribution of your magnet. It is the machine dedicated exclusively to getting the 5% to raise their hands and give you their contact info.
Okay, we covered that. What's phase 2?
Phase 2 is conversion. This is the choreography of turning those leads into paying customers. And this is where most drop the ball, because they think conversion is a single phone call. If they call a lead once and get a voicemail, they assume the lead is dead and they move on.
Right, because if you ask for the sale on a first call, you're back to proposing on the first date. Conversion has to be a sequence. What does a properly engineered conversion sequence actually look like mechanically? Let's say I'm a B2B software consultant and someone just downloaded my free report on streamlining inventory.
A systematic conversion sequence removes all human emotion and hesitation from the process. It runs on a schedule. Day 1. The automated system delivers the PDF, welcomes them, and offers an unexpected bonus, building immediate goodwill. Day 3. You send an email detailing a paradigm shift, a story about how traditional inventory methods are failing. Day 5. You send a physical piece of mail, a printed case study showing how you saved a specific client $50,000, proving your ROI. Day 8. You send a highly specific Godfather offer, an invitation for a brief, low-pressure discovery call with a guarantee attached.
So you are systematically building trust, providing proof, and escalating the relationship over time without requiring the business owner to manually type out emails every morning.
Exactly. It operates in the background.
Yeah.
And then phase 3 is retention and referral. This is the machine that prevents the restaurant tragedy. It is a systematic communication with people who have already bought from you, increasing the frequency of their purchases and actively engineering referrals.
Because hoping for word of mouth is not a system.
Not at all.
Actively sending a physical monthly newsletter that keeps you top of mind and including a structured referral incentive program, that is a system.
If you build those 3 pillars, generation, conversion, retention, you are no longer at the mercy of the roller coaster. You own the asset of a responsive list.
Which brings us to a massive logistical question. We have our target market defined, we have our psychological magnet built, we have our follow-up sequence ready to fire. Where do we actually broadcast this message? Because this leads to key idea 5, the media overload and the price trap.
Yes, the modern business owner is paralyzed by media options. Every day, there's a new guru telling them that if they aren't doing TikTok dances or running complicated YouTube pre-roll ads or buying geofence mobile alerts, their business will die.
It creates immense fatigue. You feel like you have to be everywhere at
But
once.
trying to be everywhere is just another version of the big brand delusion.
Yeah.
You do not need to be omnipresent. You only need to be omnipresent in the specific world of your 5%.
Okay.
The solution to media overload is actually remarkably simple and requires ignoring 99% of the platforms out there. You only go exactly where your target market gathers.
Give me a concrete example of this, because it often feels very counterintuitive when you start applying it to niche markets.
Let's use an extreme example to prove the point. Suppose you run a boutique, high-end financial consulting firm. Your minimum client net worth is $5 million. You have done the deep psychographic research, and you discover a bizarre statistical anomaly. A disproportionately massive percentage of your absolute best, most lucrative clients share a specific hobby. They're fanatical about building intricate model train sets,
Okay.
and they subscribe to and rigorously read Model Railroading magazine.
Okay, but I sell high finance wealth management. I have absolutely nothing to do with toy trains. If I put a full-page ad about wealth preservation next to an article about painting miniature pine trees, isn't that a massive disconnect?
Not at all. In fact, it is the most efficient marketing spend you could possibly make. You are targeting the reader, not matching the topic of the publication. Why would you spend $20,000 to run an ad in the Wall Street Journal, where your message will be diluted among millions of people who aren't your ideal client and surrounded by 50 of your direct competitors?
I see. You spend $2,000 to be the only financial advisor in Model Railroading magazine, and you have the undivided attention of your exact demographic in an environment where their guard is completely down.
Exactly. You go where they are, regardless of whether the platform matches your industry. This eliminates the media fatigue entirely. If your perfect clients aren't scrolling Facebook, you don't need a Facebook page, period.
That is a profoundly liberating concept. Stop chasing the trendy platform and just follow the data of your specific audience. But there is a second half to this trap that we have to discuss. When business owners lack a targeted system and they are drowning in media noise, they tend to look sideways at their competitors. And when they don't know how to articulate their value, they default to the most dangerous lever in business: price.
The price trap. When you are viewed as a commodity, just another roofer, just another accountant, just another graphic designer, the consumer has no metric to judge you by other than the price tag. And the default reaction of a panicked business owner is to slash their prices to win the bid.
Which initiates a race to the bottom.
A race you absolutely do not want to win, because mathematically, there can only be one lowest priced option in any market, only one. And unless you are a massive corporation with supply chain dominance and billions in cash reserves, like Walmart or Amazon, you cannot survive operating on razor-thin margins.
It's just not sustainable.
If you try to be the cheapest local plumber, another plumber will eventually undercut you by $5, and you lose the client anyway. Winning the race to the bottom just makes you the king of the bottom dwellers, and it guarantees you will eventually go out of business.
So how do you escape the gravitational pull of price comparison? If I am an estate planning attorney and there are 50 other estate planning attorneys in my city, how do I stop a prospective client from just calling 3 of us and picking the cheapest hourly rate?
You have to completely remove yourself from the comparison. You do this by developing a radical unique selling proposition, or USP. You package your services in a way that uniquely benefits a highly specific niche, elevating you from a commodity to a category of one.
The Alzheimer's Law example is the gold standard for this. Let's unpack the mechanics of what this attorney actually did, because it wasn't just a clever slogan, it fundamentally changed his business model.
A lawyer named Bill Hammond recognized that estate planning is a commodity. People price shop it. But he also recognized a specific, terrifying internal conversation happening in a segment of his market: families who had just received a dementia or Alzheimer's diagnosis for a parent.
That's a very specific, painful situation.
These families weren't just looking for a standard will, they were drowning in fear about Medicare depletion, nursing home costs, power of attorney disputes, and the profound emotional toll of the disease.
So instead of advertising estate planning for seniors, he created a completely new proprietary category. He branded his practice as specializing in Alzheimer's law.
He wrapped standard estate planning, Medicare asset protection, and specialized legal matters into one comprehensive package designed exclusively for this traumatic life event. And he backed it up operationally. His staff was trained to handle the emotional fragility of these families. His intake forms were customized for the disease progression.
The psychological effect of that USP is incredible. If I am dealing with the heartbreak of a parent's dementia diagnosis and I need legal help, I am going to Google. If I see a generic attorney charging $300 an hour and I see Bill Hammond, the Alzheimer's law expert, charging $500 an hour, I am not going to price shop.
You wouldn't even consider it.
The generic attorney could be half the price, and I still wouldn't hire him. I want the specialist who understands my exact nightmare. The price becomes entirely secondary to the specialized value.
Exactly. He separated himself from the herd. By choosing to uniquely benefit a niche market in acute pain, he made price irrelevant. The practical takeaway for anyone listening is this. If you are continually losing business because someone else is cheaper, the problem is not your price.
It's the perception.
The problem is that your market views you as a commodity. You have not crafted a strong enough USP to make yourself incomparable.
If we pull all the way back and look at the synthesis of everything we've discussed today, what emerges is a fundamental realignment of how a business interacts with the world. The soul of these principles is about identity. It's about migrating from the exhausting, desperate identity of a chaser who begs for attention.
You abandon the unmeasurable, vain acts of imitation marketing. You stop pretending you have the budget of Coca-Cola. You stop throwing Jell-O at the wall to see what sticks.
And instead, you step into the identity of a strategic attractor.
It changes the entire posture of your business. By doing the hard work of understanding the secret, 3 a.m. fears of the 5% who are ready to buy, by offering them a high-value magnet that forces them to raise their hand, by placing that specific message only in the quiet corners where they already gather. You engineer a machine.
You build the sprinkler system, a machine that works autonomously. It filters out the tire kickers who just want free information, and it brings pre-qualified, highly interested prospects directly to your door asking you for your help.
Right.
It reverses the power dynamic, allowing you to charge premium prices because you are positioned as the welcomed expert, not the annoying pest.
It is the difference between hunting in the woods with a spear, exhausted and starving, versus building a perfectly engineered trap that works while you sleep.
So as we wrap up this deep dive, I want you to conduct an honest audit of your own operations. Look at the money you spent on marketing last month. Look at how you spent your hours. Are you riding the roller coaster of feast and famine? Are you watering the pavement hoping for a garden? Or are you building a targeted, predictable magnet?
That audit is the most critical diagnostic you can run on your future survival.
Next time, we are going to dive into the exact practical execution of Phase 2, conversion. We'll explore specifically how to craft an offer so overwhelmingly appealing, what is known as a Godfather offer, that it makes saying no to you feel mathematically illogical to the prospect.
We will break down the unit economics of risk reversal and guarantee structures. It will be a highly mechanical blueprint.
But until then, I want to leave you with one final thought to mull over. We talked about how traditional marketing is like trying to fix a broken bone by just shining a really bright flashlight on the skin and hoping the bone magically heals itself. It looks flashy, it costs a lot of batteries, but it doesn't change the underlying structure.
It's cosmetic intervention for a structural problem.
Right. Direct response magnetic marketing is the actual orthopedic surgery. It's opening things up, understanding the exact mechanical stress points, the deep psychology of your specific customer, and systematically pinning the pieces together so it functions perfectly. It is not about being the loudest voice in the room. It is about being the most relevant voice to a very specific person. So ask yourself today, in your market, who exactly is your 5%? What is the secret fear keeping them awake tonight? And what is the specific risk-free lifeline you can offer them tomorrow morning that they simply cannot refuse?
95%. I mean, if you're a business owner or an entrepreneur listening to this right now, there is a very high probability that 95% of the money you spent on advertising this past month was just completely wasted.
Yeah, it's a staggering statistic when you first hear it.
You literally paid to stand in a giant auditorium and just shout your pitch to an empty room, or, worse, a room full of people who are fast asleep.
Right, and it's the kind of reality check that makes a lot of people instantly defensive because, well, nobody wants to believe they're actively throwing their own hard-earned capital into a furnace.
Obviously not.
But when you actually look at the raw mechanics of how most small to medium businesses operate, that 95% waste is actually kind of a conservative estimate.
Which is exactly why we're dedicating this entire deep dive to a complete teardown of what we've all been taught to do.
Hmm.
We are pulling directly from Chapter 3 of our source material today, and it's entirely focused on a really painful subject for a lot of you, why marketing fails.
It is painful, yeah, but it's so necessary.
Exactly. So in this session, you're going to learn the 9 fatal traps that cause businesses to bleed time, energy, and mostly money. But more importantly, we're going to look at why mimicking the strategies of giant global corporations is actually the ultimate trap for a growing business.
Which is something almost everyone does by default.
Right. By understanding the psychology and the economics behind these specific pitfalls, you can stop the bleeding. You can transform what is usually a super frustrating, anxiety-inducing daily grind into a predictable system that, well, magnetically attracts the exact customers you want.
We are fundamentally shifting the paradigm today. We're moving away from hoping and guessing and stressing and moving toward a state of deliberate, trackable control. Because, when you understand exactly why a bridge collapses, you can finally build one that actually stands.
Okay, let's get right into the architecture of these collapses then. The first fatal trap the text outlines is the everyone trap. Basically the act of marketing to the wrong people. And the psychological driver behind this makes total sense to me. I mean, it's the fear of exclusion. As a business owner, you look at the landscape and you think, I have overhead, I have payroll, I need customers today.
Right. Anyone with a pulse and a credit card is my potential customer.
Exactly. So you cast this incredibly wide net, just hoping to catch absolutely anything that swims by.
Which brings us right back to that 95% statistic we opened with. The instinct to cast a wide net is a totally natural human survival mechanism. When you're hungry for sales, intentionally ignoring a massive segment of the population feels, well, it feels reckless.
It feels crazy.
But the math of human behavior, and specifically market readiness, tells a completely different story.
So break that math down for us. Why is 95% of that wide net catching absolutely nothing?
It's because of the hierarchy of market readiness. At any given snapshot in time, only about 5% of a given population is intellectually, emotionally, practically, and financially ready to act on a buying decision for your specific product or service.
Just 5%.
Just 5. The other 95% are broken down into different categories of unreadiness. So some are completely unaware they even have a problem. Some are aware of the problem, but aren't actively looking for a solution yet.
Right, they're just living with the pain.
Exactly. Or maybe others are looking, but they don't have the budget right now, or they're locked into a contract with your competitor. So when you spend your budget broadcasting a generic, watered-down message to everyone, you are literally paying a premium to interrupt the 95% of people who cannot and will not buy from you right now.
Okay, wait, I have to push back on this because I can hear the objections from the listeners right now.
Sure.
Narrowing down to just 5% sounds fantastic in theory. Or, if you sell highly specialized industrial laser cutters online or something. But what if you're a local business?
Give me an example.
Say I own a single location shoe store in a mid-sized town. Everyone has feet. Everyone wears shoes. Can I really afford to alienate 95% of the foot traffic by only marketing to, let's say, competitive marathon runners?
Mm-hmm.
Does this math actually hold up for a general brick-and-mortar store?
It absolutely holds up. And in fact, I'd argue it's even more critical for that local brick-and-mortar store.
Holy, how so?
Here's the operational reality. Unless you're a multinational conglomerate, you do not have the marketing budget to blanket your entire town with enough frequency and repetition to make everyone care about your general shoe store.
True, yeah.
You simply don't have the capital. If you try to appeal to everyone, your message becomes, we sell shoes for feet.
Which is super boring.
It's incredibly boring. It commands zero attention. But if you take that exact same limited budget and laser focus it exclusively on competitive marathon runners in your Tri-County area, suddenly you can afford to be everywhere they are.
Oh, I see.
You can sponsor their local 5K races. You can buy ads in their specific running club newsletters. Your messaging changes from "we have shoes" to "we can shave 30 seconds off your PR and eliminate shin splints."
Wow, yeah, that's a huge difference.
Discrimination in marketing is your safe passage to profit. You sacrifice the illusion of the masses to actually dominate a specific, highly profitable niche.
That makes a ton of sense. You aren't leaving money on the table. You're actually picking up the only money that was realistically available to you in the first place.
Exactly.
So if you're listening, you need to define your highly specific target audience. You have to get incredibly granular. Find your WHO. Because if you don't know who you are trying to reach, you're just paying to talk to a brick wall.
And that flows directly into the second trap.
Right. So let's say you've done the work, you found the marathon runners. The very next fatal mistake is ruining the conversation by saying the completely wrong thing to them. The text calls this the message to market match.
Yes. And this is where the psychology of the consumer really has to take precedence over the ego of the business owner. It's not enough to just locate the right person. Your words, your offer, your entire pitch, it must perfectly intersect with the exact internal dialogue that's already looping in their mind.
So you can't just start a new conversation.
No, you cannot force a new conversation. You have to seamlessly join the one they are already having.
Okay, but how do we actually know what that internal market dialogue is? Does the source material give an example of a company that diagnosed this perfectly? Because it feels a little bit like mind reading.
It's not mind reading, it's just deep empathy. The source material highlights one of the most famous examples in modern business history, Domino's Pizza in its early days.
Oh, yes.
If we analyze what made them a household name, it wasn't the culinary quality of the food. They didn't target gourmet food critics or families looking for an authentic Tuscan dining experience. They targeted ravenously hungry, probably slightly sleep-deprived college students.
Right. And the internal dialogue of a 19-year-old college student cramming for an exam at midnight is basically caveman brain. It's just hungry, food, now.
Exactly. That is the internal loop. I am hungry, I am tired, and I don't want to wait. How did Domino's intersect with that exact thought? Their message wasn't about their grandmother's secret marinara recipe. It wasn't about farm-fresh, locally sourced toppings.
No one cared about that at 1 a.m.
Right. Their message was a massive, highly specific promise. Fresh hot pizza delivered in 30 minutes or less, or it's free.
It was a perfect lock-and-key fit. The market's internal dialogue was food now, and the message replied 30 minutes or less.
What's crucial to understand here is the mechanism of failure. If Domino's had used any other message, even an objectively better message about food quality, they would have failed.
If they promised authentic organic ingredient.
Or delivery by a highly trained waiter, yeah, it would have totally tanked. Why? Because a starving college student does not care about organic flour at midnight. They care about the clock. The message must match the market's specific, immediate priority.
And it goes even deeper than just the big promise, right? I mean, it comes down to the literal vocabulary you use. The text points out a really great nuance about insider vernacular.
Oh, the musician example.
Yes. If you're a company marketing services to professional musicians, you promise to help them get more gigs, not more jobs. Because to a musician, the word job sounds like, a cubicle, a boss, and a soul-crushing 9-to-5.
It's a repellent word for them.
Exactly.
Uh-huh.
But a gig sounds like a stage, a crowd, and artistic freedom. If you use the wrong vocabulary, you immediately out yourself as an outsider who doesn't understand their world. It's like trying to speak French to someone who only understands Mandarin.
You have to use dog whistle language. Words and phrases that only your target market truly resonates with. So if you're listening to this, you really have to audit your marketing vocabulary. Are you talking about the features of your product that you are proud of, or are you echoing the exact words your customer uses when they're complaining about their problem to a friend?
That is a critical pivot. You have to stop talking about yourself.
Absolutely.
But even if you fix that, let's say you have the right person and you're using their exact insider vocabulary. The source points out that businesses still hit a massive wall because of how they initiate the transaction, which is the third fatal trap. Asking them to do the wrong things, the premature pitch.
Which brings up a very interesting psychological barrier. Why do consumers hesitate even when the offer is genuinely good? Even when you found the starving college student and offered them the 30-minute pizza, or you found the marathon runner and offered the perfect shoe, why do people still freeze up and refuse to buy?
I can answer that from personal experience, and I'm sure every listener can too. It's because we've all been burned. We live in a highly skeptical, high-friction age.
Very true.
Trust in institutions, in advertising, and especially in salespeople is at an absolute historical low. Our default state is just guarded.
our default state is deeply guarded. You have to understand that making a purchase, especially a high-ticket or complex purchase, it requires the consumer to take a massive leap of faith.
Yeah.
They have to part with their resources and trust that you are actually going to deliver on your promises. When you ask for a sale right out of the gate to a completely cold prospect who barely knows your company exists, you are demanding an unreasonable amount of trust far too soon.
It's the ultimate dating cliche, but it's so true. If I walk up to a total stranger in a coffee shop, someone I find incredibly attractive, and my opening line is, "Hi, I love your sweater. Let's combine our finances, buy a house, and spend the next 50 years together," they're going to throw their iced latte in my face and call security.
As they should.
It's a terrifying proposition. Yet business owners do this every single day on their websites. "Hi, welcome to my homepage. Enter your credit card number for my $5,000 consulting package."
It triggers the fight or flight response. Every time you ask for money, you introduce friction. Every form field they have to fill out is friction. You're demanding a massive commitment before you've established even a baseline level of safety.
So what's the alternative? How do we fix the coffee shop marriage proposal problem?
The alternative to that aggressive, high-pressure tactic, the mechanism that removes the friction, is what the text calls lead generation.
Explain the mechanics of that.
Instead of asking for money immediately, you offer a high-value, low-risk intermediate step. You offer a free gift.
Okay, like what?
This could be a detailed industry report, a diagnostic checklist, a video tutorial, or a consumer buying guide. Something that solves a micro problem for them and is incredibly easy to say yes to. You lower the barrier to entry so much that stepping over it feels entirely effortless.
That makes sense.
This allows the prospect to qualify themselves. They raise their hand, trade their email address for the free information, and essentially say, yes, I am actively interested in this topic right now.
So you're basically just asking them if they want to grab a quick coffee, rather than asking them to move in with you.
Precisely. Once they cross that low friction threshold and request that free information, the entire dynamic shifts. You now have explicit permission to start a dialogue.
Right, because they asked for it.
You can begin an automated sequence that builds credibility, demonstrates your expertise, and fosters trust over days or weeks. So when you finally do ask for the sale later down the line, it feels like the natural, logical next step in a mutually beneficial relationship rather than an unprovoked ambush.
Wow, okay. So if you're listening to this and realizing your website or your sales funnel asks for the credit card on page 1, you are essentially proposing on the first date. You have to insert that buffer step, give them the chance to know you, like you, and trust you. But once you have that brilliant, low-friction invitation ready, you run headfirst into what I think is the most overwhelming trap of all. Mistake number 4. Advertising anywhere and everywhere. The text calls this the media maze.
The media maze is an absolute graveyard for small business budgets, and the landscape is intentionally designed to be overwhelming.
I have to admit, I've fallen victim to this one hard. Last year, I spent an entire month obsessing over a new short-form vertical video app. I was researching algorithms, buying lighting gear, spending 3 hours a day editing these snappy little clips because every marketing blog told me, you absolutely have to be on this platform or your business is dead.
And how did that work out?
I generated thousands of views, felt great about myself, and it yielded exactly $0 in actual sales. It was a complete mirage.
Your experience is incredibly common. The source material refers to business owners in that exact situation as advertising victims.
Advertising victims, that's harsh.
It is a harsh term, but it describes the dynamic perfectly. Media salespeople, digital ad reps, platform influencers, their primary goal is to sell you their inventory. They will use FOMO, the fear of missing out, to convince you that their platform is the absolute future of commerce, regardless of whether it makes mathematical sense for your specific business model. They feast on the confusion and anxiety of the entrepreneur.
And the cost of that anxiety isn't just wasted time. It can be catastrophic.
Yeah.
The text alludes to the history of these platform shifts, like the infamous Google slap of the 2000s, or the massive Facebook algorithm changes over the years.
Oh, absolutely.
We've seen entire businesses, sometimes doing millions in revenue, wiped out literally overnight because they built their entire acquisition model on a single shifting algorithm that they didn't control. They built their house on rented land, the landlord changed the rules, and they lost everything.
That is the ultimate danger of chasing the medium rather than following the market. You get distracted by vanity metrics, views, likes, shares that just don't translate into revenue.
So what's the antidote? How do we navigate the maze?
The antidote to the media maze is remarkably simple, but it requires fierce discipline. It goes back to our very first point. The WHO. If you know exactly who your target audience is, media selection ceases to be a guessing game. The WHO dictates the where, you simply go where they already go.
It's really that straightforward. We don't need a multi-channel, omni-channel synergy strategy.
You do not. If your target audience is passionate about restoring vintage motorcycles, and the data shows they spend 3 hours a week reading a specific online forum dedicated to vintage Honda engines, you buy banner ads on that specific forum.
You don't need to be dancing on a video app.
You don't need a viral dance video. You need to be exactly where their attention is already focused. If your target demographic is an older, affluent generation looking for estate planning services, and they still read the physical Sunday paper or listen to a specific local news radio station, you buy ads there.
What's so fascinating about this is how it redefines relevance. We are all conditioned to think that relevance means being on the bleeding edge of technology. But if your ideal customer is a 65-year-old retiree, spending your marketing budget on an app used primarily by high schoolers just to feel modern is a massive ego trip. It's not a marketing strategy.
Exactly. You have permission to ignore the hype.
Find out exactly where your specific audience consumes their information and concentrate your dollars exclusively in that space.
But here, even if you pick the perfect media channel and you're saying the right thing to the right people, the source material warns that doing it sporadically is a recipe for disaster.
Which brings us to the fifth fatal trap, operating without a marketing system. This is what the text refers to as throwing Jell-O against a wall or riding the roller coaster.
The roller coaster is the perfect metaphor. Because without a system, you are relying on random acts of marketing. You try a little bit of direct mail here, maybe you boost a social media post next month when you feel like it. But because there is no underlying architecture, you can't track it. You can't measure the return on investment. And most importantly, when something actually does work, you have no idea why, which means you can't repeat it.
It's the business equivalent of a one-hit wonder. You release a song, it randomly goes to #1. But because you don't understand music theory or song structure, you can never write a second hit. You just spend the rest of your career playing that one song at dive bars, wondering where the magic went.
That's a painfully accurate analogy.
Let's talk about what the roller coaster actually feels like for a business owner, because the emotional toll is brutal.
The cycle is incredibly predictable and exhausting. Here's how it usually plays out. Business is slow, the pipeline is empty, panic sets in. So the owner decides they need to market aggressively.
They hustle.
They spend money on ads, they make hundreds of cold calls, they attend every networking event in town. They are essentially pushing the cart up the steep incline of the roller coaster track.
Right, they're grinding. And because they're putting in so much effort, it eventually works. Customers start flooding in, the calendar gets booked solid.
Exactly. But then the fatal error occurs. The owner gets overwhelmed fulfilling the orders, servicing the new clients, and putting out operational fires. They look at their schedule and say, I am way too busy to market right now, so they turn the marketing completely off.
And the cart goes over the edge of the track. Because eventually, those current projects finish, current clients cycle out, and the owner looks up from their desk to realize the pipeline is completely empty again.
They crash back to the bottom, the panic sets in, and the exhausting climb starts all over.
You cannot run a sustainable scaling business on pure adrenaline and panic. It leads to profound burnout.
Absolutely. The alternative to the roller coaster is building a reliable system. Think of it like a plumbing system with a main valve you can control. The text breaks this down into 3 necessary components: lead generation, conversion, and retention.
Let's explore the mechanics of those 3 parts. How do they actually function together?
First, lead generation is the intake valve. It's running constantly, 24/7, in the background. It is offering that low-friction bait, we talked about the free reports or guides, to constantly identify new interested prospects and get them to raise their hands.
Okay, so that's bringing them in. What's next?
Second, you have conversion. Now, this is not a manual process of you calling people one by one. This is an automated follow-up system, perhaps a 5-part email sequence delivered over 10 days that provides immense value, builds trust, and smoothly transitions into asking for the sale.
Nice. And the third?
And third, retention. This is the system that continuously communicates with your existing customers, ensures they're getting results, and systematically asks them for reviews and referrals.
The beauty of that 3-part plumbing system is the control it gives you. When those 3 parts are running consistently, you can literally turn the flow of customers up or down based on your operational capacity. If your staff is completely overwhelmed with work, you don't turn the machine off. You just dial the lead generation ad spend down by 20% to slow the flow.
Hmm.
If you just hired 3 new people and you're ready to scale, you turn the valve up. But you never, ever shut the water off completely.
Stepping off the roller coaster means taking control of the ride. And when you finally have that predictable system running, the entire dynamic of how you interact with the marketplace fundamentally flips.
This is where the psychology of sales completely transforms. The sixth mistake businesses make is what they stop doing when they finally build a system. The mistake is chasing clients, the desperation default.
Yeah, chasing is a very common default.
I want you, the listener, to think about your own biological hardwiring for a second. If you're walking down the street and you look over your shoulder and realize a stranger is sprinting directly towards you, what is your immediate involuntary physical reaction?
You accelerate, your heart rate spikes, your adrenaline floods your system, and your instinct is to escape.
You skedaddle. You get out of there as fast as humanly possible because you perceive pursuit as a threat.
It's a deeply ingrained evolutionary response. When someone is aggressively pursuing us, we view them as a danger, or in a modern business context, as a massive nuisance. And consumers do the exact same thing when they feel pursued by a salesperson.
Definitely.
If you are constantly cold calling them, flooding their inbox with just bubbling this to the top emails and begging for 15 minutes of their time, their immediate instinct is to put up a mental wall and escape the interaction.
It's exhausting for the business owner to constantly be the hunter, and it's incredibly repellent to the customer to be the prey. So we need to transition from an outbound hunting model to an inbound magnetic model. What the operational opposite of chasing?
Magnetically attracting. Instead of running after prospects until you are sweating and exhausted, you construct and deploy bait.
I love the visual of this. It's like an old cartoon where a character places a delicious steaming apple pie on a windowsill.
Yes, exactly.
They don't run around the neighborhood shoving the pie in people's faces, yelling, "Eat my pie!" They just set it down, let the aroma waft through the air, and let the scent do the heavy lifting. The characters catch the scent, their feet lift off the ground, and they float directly to the windowsill.
That is a perfect analogy. That is exactly how high-level inbound content marketing functions. By offering that highly specific consumer guide, that diagnostic tool, or that valuable free report, the lead generation magnet we discussed earlier, the prospect comes to you.
They smell the pie.
They smell the pie. They recognize that you hold the solution to their micro problem, so they raise their hand and request the information. This completely fundamentally reverses the power dynamic of the relationship.
That power shift is everything. You instantly go from being an annoying pest interrupting their day to a welcome guest they invited into their inbox. You go from a desperate beggar trying to convince them of your worth to a positioned expert whose time is inherently valuable.
It changes the entire conversation.
When they cross the threshold to ask you for information, you are the one holding the cards. You are no longer convincing. You are diagnosing and prescribing.
It's the difference between a door-to-door vitamin salesman and a cardiac surgeon. You don't ignore the surgeon when they tell you what you need because you went to them for help. But to truly embrace this shift from chasing to attracting, business owners have to overcome a massive mental hurdle.
And what's that?
They have to completely abandon the marketing templates they have been force-fed by massive global brands.
Which brings us to the seventh trap, the brand delusion. The fatal mistake of thinking you have the advertising budget and the strategic goals of Coca-Cola.
It's so common.
We all watch the Super Bowl. We see these incredibly slick, multi-million-dollar cinematic advertisements that make us laugh or cry, and we think, that is what real marketing looks like. I need to hire a videographer to make a beautiful, abstract video about my company's core values.
It's a profound disconnect between the reality of a small enterprise and the reality of a global conglomerate. You have to understand the vastly different ecosystems they operate in. Giant companies do not advertise the way a growing business needs to advertise. They have entirely different agendas.
Like what?
Well, a Fortune 500 company is often advertising to appease a demanding board of directors. They're advertising to win industry awards at Cannes. They're advertising to build corporate image, to keep their stock prices stable, and deter competitors from entering their market space.
They're definitely not sitting in a boardroom on Monday morning tracking the direct one-to-one sales generated from a 30-second Super Bowl commercial. But a small business owner, a startup founder, they have only one agenda: sell something NOW so we can make payroll on Friday.
Let's examine the classic example of the Goodyear blimp. It is a masterpiece of corporate brand building, but it perfectly illustrates why small businesses cannot copy big businesses.
I love the blimp example. Think about the physical reality of the Goodyear blimp floating majestically over a packed college football stadium. Goodyear is not spending massive amounts of aviation fuel to fly that blimp with the expectation that 35,000 football fans are going to look up at halftime, abandon their expensive seats, leave the stadium, and sprint to the nearest auto shop to buy a full set of all-weather snow tires. That would be absurd.
Of course it would. They are not buying a direct response. They are buying warm, fuzzy feelings. They're hoping that over decades of constantly seeing that blimp hovering over their favorite sporting events, the consumer will slowly, subconsciously associate the name Goodyear with good times, reliability, and Americana.
It's a very long game.
It's a massive investment in brand identity over a time scale of decades.
Huh.
Now, consider that a company like Coca-Cola spends roughly $4 billion a year on advertising. $4 billion. If a small entrepreneur, or even a mid-sized regional business, tries to mimic that image-based style of advertising, running clever, vague ads with no direct call to action, just hoping people recognize their logo in a few years they are committing financial suicide, they will run out of cash long before the brand recognition ever kicks in.
But I hear the pushback on this constantly, even from very smart founders. The argument is always, but doesn't a business need a strong brand to survive? Don't people need to trust my brand before they are willing to buy from me?
That is the core of the delusion. The mechanism of trust doesn't work that way for a small business. Here is the operational reality you must embrace. Brand building is a byproduct of excellent direct response marketing. It is not the initial goal.
A byproduct.
You do not buy a brand, you buy a response. You put an ad into the marketplace that says, are you struggling with this highly specific, painful problem? Here is the exact proven solution. Call this number right now to get it. When the prospect calls and you deliver the solution flawlessly and you remove their pain, that interaction is what builds your brand.
I see.
Your brand is just their memory of a kept promise. You buy the response to make a profit, and you accept the brand building as a free downstream bonus.
Buy the response, accept the brand building as a free bonus. If you're taking notes, that is the concept to underline 3 times. Never, ever spend a single dollar on advertising that cannot be directly tracked to a measurable immediate return on investment. Forget paying for exposure. Forget getting your name out there. Ignore the big brands completely.
Absolutely.
If an advertisement does not explicitly ask the customer to take a specific action that you can track and measure, kill the ad immediately.
It requires immense discipline to stay in the direct response lane when the entire culture celebrates image marketing. But when businesses lack that trackable system and they abandon direct response because it feels too salesy, they inevitably panic when revenue drops. And when they panic, they resort to the most dangerous, mathematically destructive tactic in the entire business playbook.
Mistake number 8. The race to the bottom in low price.
When a business owner does not know how to differentiate themselves through a strong message-to-market match, when they sound exactly like every other generic competitor in their town, their default survival mechanism is to slash prices.
Now you just pull the discount lever.
They look at the competition and think, if I can't be the clearest or the best, I will just be the cheapest.
We see this everywhere, and it crosses every single industry. It doesn't matter if you're looking at local landscaping companies fighting over $10 discounts on lawn care or high-level, sophisticated B2B software consulting firms underbidding each other on proposals until there is absolutely zero profit margin left in the contract. It's a total bloodbath.
And it is a race where the ultimate winner is actually the biggest loser. We need to look at the brutal microeconomics of a price war because most business owners do not understand the math of discounting.
Okay, let's look at the math.
If your business operates on a standard 20% profit margin and you decide to cut your prices by just 10% to beat the guy down the street, you don't just lose a little bit of money. Mathematically, you have to double your total sales volume just to make the exact same gross profit you were making before the discount.
Wait, really?
Yeah.
Let that sink in. You cut your price by a fraction, and now you have to do twice as much physical work, service twice as many clients, and handle twice as many headaches just to break even with where you started. It's an operational nightmare.
It's completely unsustainable. Furthermore, there's a fundamental law of commerce. There can only ever be one lowest priced option in any given market. Only one. And to hold that precarious pole position, you have to be willing to take massive, continuous financial hits.
You're just bleeding out.
You have to operate on razor-thin margins, which means you inevitably have to cut corners on the quality of your materials, you have to underpay and overwork your staff, and you eliminate any budget you had for research and development.
Unless you're Amazon or Walmart, with access to billions of dollars in capital and the ability to operate at a loss for years just to literally suffocate the competition, you cannot win a price war. Someone else is always willing to go out of business faster than you.
Exactly. Price is a terrible, fragile competitive advantage because it can be instantly neutralized by a competitor who is slightly more desperate or foolish than you are. Your marketing system should be doing the heavy lifting, not your profit margins.
Right.
Your marketing should be highlighting your unique value proposition, the specific tailored solutions you offer, and the incredible frictionless experience you provide.
And this ties perfectly back to mistake number one. When you attract the right customer, the 5% who are ready and highly motivated, they care about the ultimate result. They care that you understand their unique problem perfectly.
Right, the marathon runner.
Yes, a competitive marathon runner who's dealing with debilitating shin splints does not care about saving 5% on a pair of generic sneakers. They will happily pay a premium for the expert who guarantees they can run pain-free.
That is the true power of a perfect message to market match. When a consumer feels deeply, profoundly understood by your marketing, price resistance melts away. It becomes a secondary or even tertiary concern.
So if you're caught in this trap, eliminate price as your primary competitive tool today. Stop running arbitrary discount promotions just to get warm bodies in the door. Use your marketing to highlight the unique transformation you provide. Attract the customers who respect your expertise and are happy to pay a premium for a real, lasting solution.
Let your competitors fight over the bottom feeders while you serve the premium tier.
Exactly. Now let's say you have navigated all of this perfectly. You targeted the right WHO. You used their exact vocabulary. You offered a low-friction lead magnet instead of proposing on the first date. You placed that magnet in the exact media channel they consume. You held your ground on price, charged what you are worth, and you successfully made the sale.
You've climbed the mountain. You are popping the champagne.
You are. You did the hardest part. But then, shockingly, an unbelievable number of businesses drop the ball mere inches from the finish line. They commit the final and perhaps most frustrating, fatal trap. Mistake number 9. There is absolutely no follow-up. The silent treatment.
The source material refers to this failure as a criminal waste. And when you look at the economics of customer acquisition, it truly is. You did all the heavy lifting, you spent the capital to acquire the customer, and then you just let them vanish into the ether.
There's a scenario that perfectly illustrates the absurdity of this, and I guarantee everyone listening has experienced it from the consumer side. Imagine you decide to try a brand new, highly recommended restaurant in your city. You walk in, the ambiance is incredible. You have an amazing multi-course meal. The waiter is attentive and fantastic. You pay a substantial bill, leave a generous 25% tip, and walk out the front door into the night. That's the end of the story.
You never hear a single word from them again.
Never. The owner or the manager never came over to ask for my name. They didn't ask for my email address to send me the chef's seasonal recipes. They didn't ask for my physical address to send a postcard for a free appetizer on my birthday. They just happily took my money for that one single meal and let me walk away.
Think about the underlying economics of what that restaurant just allowed to happen. We have to talk about customer acquisition cost, or CAC.
Okay, Sankus.
That restaurant owner spent thousands of dollars on exterior illuminated signage. They spent money designing and printing premium menus. They paid for the hostess, the waitstaff, and the kitchen crew. They bought the raw ingredients. They probably paid a local agency to run targeted social media ads. All of those expenses were incurred just to acquire you as a customer and get you in the door for that very first meal.
They might have spent $50 in marketing and overhead just to get me to spend $75 on dinner. The margin on that first visit is tiny.
Precisely. The real profit in almost any business model comes from the second, third, and fourth purchases, because there is no acquisition cost associated with them. The lifetime value, the LTV, is where the wealth is generated.
But they didn't get my info.
But by failing to capture your contact information before you left, that restaurant surrendered all control over whether you ever return. They are relying entirely on the fragile hope of your memory. They were praying that 3 months from now, On a random Tuesday when you're hungry, you magically remember how good their pasta was and proactively decide to drive back.
And the reality is, I won't remember. Not because the food was bad, but because I'm a modern consumer bombarded by 10,000 other marketing messages every single day. My attention is fractured. I will probably just end up going to the mediocre chain restaurant down the street
Mhm.
simply because they sent me an email with a 20% off coupon that morning. They were in my inbox, so they got my money.
When you allow a customer or a qualified lead to remain anonymous, you are condemning yourself to pay that high customer acquisition cost over and over again every single time. You are constantly hunting, never farming. A proper functional marketing system mandates that you capture contact data. It is not an optional nice to have. It is the absolute lifeblood of your retention system.
So the mandate here is absolute. Never allow a lead, and certainly never allow a paying buyer, to remain anonymous. You must implement a mandatory, systematic step in your business process right now to capture that contact information. Whether you create a VIP loyalty club, offer a digital feedback card with an incentive, or simply require an email address for a digital receipt, capture the data.
It's non-negotiable.
Once you have that asset, you can continuously follow up, nurture that relationship over years, and transform a one-time buyer into a lifelong, highly profitable advocate for your brand.
If we pull back the lens and look at the totality of these 9 failures, a very stark and clear picture emerges of why the 80% struggle. We see exactly what happens when marketing is left to chance, when it is driven by ego, or when it is just a blind imitation of what the giant corporations are doing.
It's a bloodbath. It is a graveyard of wasted capital, burned out founders, and dashed entrepreneurial dreams.
It is. But if we synthesize all of these warnings, if we tie the psychological insights and the economic mechanics together, the soul of this chapter reveals a profoundly empowering truth. It tells us that successful marketing is never an accident. It is never a stroke of luck. It is not a guessing game of throwing jello at a wall. And it is absolutely not a test of who can shout the loudest or spend the most money on flashy ads.
So, if it isn't any of those things we've been taught it is, what is the core truth?
The truth is that effective marketing is a deeply deliberate, highly trackable mathematical system. It is an intentionally designed machine that does one specific thing flawlessly. It matches the exact right message, using the exact right vocabulary to the exact right person at the exact moment they are looking for a solution.
The message to market match.
Exactly. When you engineer that precise match, you make the prospect feel so deeply, intimately understood that the traditional friction of selling simply evaporates. They naturally gravitate toward you, not because you pressured them, but because you have proven yourself to be the most obvious, undeniable solution to their specific pain.
I love the clarity of that, making them feel so deeply understood that they naturally gravitate toward you. If you're listening to this right now and you start actively dismantling these 9 traps in your own business, you are finally unbuckling yourself and stepping off that exhausting, panic-inducing roller coaster. You are taking the wheel. You are taking absolute control of your financial destiny by refusing to make the same expensive, predictable mistakes that your competitors are making every single day.
You stop throwing mud against the barn and you start building a magnet.
A magnet. That is the perfect visualization for what we're trying to achieve. So now that we have torn down the old house, now that you know exactly what is broken in the traditional chaotic way of marketing, now that you clearly see the hidden dangers of the media maze, the financial suicide of the brand delusion, and the criminal waste of the silent treatment, the obvious question is, what comes next?
That's the million-dollar question.
How exactly do you build this new magnetic machine from scratch? How do you craft the perfect, irresistible bait? And how do you mechanically structure that reliable 3-part plumbing system so it runs on autopilot? Well, you're going to have to join us for our next deep dive, where we will explore the exact step-by-step architecture of what happens when you finally stop chasing and start attracting.
What if the real reason you're completely exhausted in your business isn't because you aren't working hard enough, but because you're constantly running after people who are actively trying to outrun you?
Yeah, I mean, think about that for a second. It's a terrifying thought.
Right. It totally flips the script. And today, we are going to do a deep dive into completely flipping that script on everything you've ever been taught about acquiring customers.
We really are. We're talking about the exact moment you stop desperately chasing, you start, magnetically attracting.
Exactly. In this deep dive, we're unpacking the core concepts of what happens when you attract instead of chase and what that actually looks like in practice.
Because it's not just theory.
Right. It's highly practical. You are about to learn the fundamental difference between high risk, hope marketing, and predictable direct response systems.
Which is really the absolute lifeblood for anyone interested in surviving and thriving in business or entrepreneurship today.
So I want to start with the baseline reality here, because
Yeah.
there is this very specific, terrifying sound that practically any entrepreneur or business owner knows intimately.
Oh, I know exactly what you're going to say.
Yeah, it's silence.
The worst sound in the world.
The silent phone, the empty inbox, the quiet storefront where you're just standing there and, the fixed costs are just ticking away.
It's agonizing. And when you face that silence, to fix it, the natural human instinct is to just, well, to run faster.
Right, the whole hustle culture thing.
Exactly. You start cold calling, you hustle, you slash your prices, and you basically try to chase down any prospect with a pulse.
But the psychology of that chase is fundamentally broken, isn't it?
Oh, completely. Because think about it from the other side. When someone sees you running after them in hot pursuit, their natural biological impulse is to, well, to skedaddle.
To skedaddle. Yeah, I mean, if I'm walking down the street and someone sprints at me with a clipboard, I am crossing the street.
Right. You avoid eye contact, you speed up, they will always outrun you. And in business, if you are chasing, you have absolutely zero leverage.
You're just commoditizing yourself at that point.
100%.
Right.
You are forced to compete on price, which means you enter this mad dash to the bottom.
And the only prize there is going out of business slightly slower than the guy down the street.
Exactly. Which is why we have to introduce this paradigm shift. Attraction.
Attraction. Okay, break that down for us.
So instead of running after them, you lay out bait. Bait that your ideal customer inherently values.
Right.
And this causes them to actually raise their hand and come to you.
But wait, I got to push back on this on behalf of the listener, because isn't hustling and pounding the pavement a rite of passage?
People certainly think it is.
I mean, we're always told the early bird gets the worm, right? You got to grind.
You do have to work hard, but it's about where you apply the effort.
It sounds to me like you're saying traditional business owners act like desperate fishermen who just dive into the water to catch fish with their bare hands.
Oh, I love that analogy.
They're
Yeah.
splashing around, making a ton of noise, scaring everything away. While the magnetic marketer, they just quietly figure out what the fish actually want to eat.
They do the research.
Right. They drop the right bait on a hook, and they just sit on the dock and wait for the fish to bite.
That is exactly it. And the practical takeaway for you listening right now is that you have to stop relying on the field of dreams fallacy.
The whole "if you build it, they will come" thing.
Right. It's a total myth. Having a great product or service is utterly useless if you don't have a system to attract ready and willing buyers.
Okay, so the theory sounds great. Sitting on the dock sounds lovely. But it's easy to say just attract people in a vacuum.
It's harder in practice, sure.
What does this transition from chasing to attracting actually look like in the real messy world of business?
Well, let's look at 3 distinct real-world examples from the source material, because this proves it isn't just theory.
Let's do it. Who's first?
Case study number 1, Derek Emery. He was an independent used car buyer.
Okay, tough market.
Very tough. And he struggled for 10 years, just grinding, until he realized something massive.
Which was?
He realized that people selling used cars didn't actually want a car buyer. They wanted a bank.
A bank. Wait, really? Explain that.
Well, think about why someone sells a car to an independent buyer instead of a dealership. They usually need cash, fast. They're in a pinch.
Oh, wow. So they don't care about the car, they care about the speed of the money.
Exactly. So Derek completely changed his unique selling proposition, or USP. He changed it to guaranteed cash in hand in 20 minutes or less.
That's brilliant.
It changed everything. By shifting his message, he went from doing maybe 200 to 300 cars a month to over 1,000.
Over 1,000, just from changing the message.
Yeah, and the best part, he uniquely attracted profitable cars.
Because he's filtering out the traditional junk.
Right. If you just say, I buy cars, you get everyone. If you say cash in 20 minutes, you get people who value speed over haggling for the absolute top dollar. He completely requalified his customer base.
That is a massive shift. Okay, who is the second example?
Case study 2 is Dr. Dustin Bertelson, an orthodontist.
Now, that's a very different vibe from used cars.
Completely different. He built his practice on blood, sweat, and tears for 3 years. But he was totally stuck on a hamster wheel.
Doing the field of dreams thing.
Exactly. Relying on his degree and his skills to just magically bring people in.
So what was his revelation?
He had to undergo this profound identity shift. He realized he wasn't actually in the business of being an orthodontist.
Oh, let me guess. He was in the business of marketing orthodontic services.
You got it. And for professionals like doctors, lawyers, accountants, that is a bitter pill to swallow.
Because of the ego, right.
Yeah, the ego. They want to believe their clinical excellence is all that matters. But once Burleson admitted he was a marketer first, he grew to 4 clinics, made millions, and now he takes months off every single year.
He bought his time back. That's incredible. Okay, what about the third case study?
This is Ben Glass, a personal injury attorney.
Okay, lawyers are notorious for terrible marketing.
Oh, the worst. And Ben started out by leaving a big firm, hanging his own shingle, and he just copied what other lawyers were doing.
Let me guess. His phone stayed completely silent.
Dead silent.
I mean, this is the blind leading the blind problem, right?
100%.
Ben just copied his competitors, assuming they knew what they were doing. But how often are businesses just mimicking the terrible marketing of the guy down the street who is, secretly going bankrupt?
It happens constantly. Copying your peers is honestly the fastest route to failure. Most of them are struggling just as much as you are.
So what did Ben do differently?
He switched entirely to lead generation marketing. Instead of running a billboard that just says, "Hire me," he gave people a process to express interest first.
Like offering a free guide or a report.
Exactly. Low friction. Let them raise their hand before you ask for the sale.
Okay, so the practical takeaway for the listener here is huge. Your deliverable, what you actually do, is not your business.
Right.
You have to identify the true underlying outcome your customer wants. Like Derek Emery realizing he was a bank, not a car buyer.
Yes. But, the reason Ben Glass failed initially is so important.
Why is that?
Because he copied the wrong model. He copied what big corporations do. Which brings us to arguably the most dangerous trap a small business can fall into.
Oh, I know where we're going with this.
Trying to fly a blimp.
The Goodyear blimp illusion, yes. Let's unpack this. Massive companies spend, millions of dollars to fly a blimp over a Sunday football game.
Millions. And why do they do it?
Right, what is the actual logic there?
It's corporate logic. They do it to build general brand identity, to please a board of directors, to look good to Wall Street.
It's all vanity, basically.
Pretty much. They're just hoping that months later, a fan watching the game associates a fuzzy, warm feeling with the blimp and buys a tire.
It's so absurd when you actually think about it, and it's even more absurd when a small business tries to replicate that strategy.
It's financial suicide for a small business.
Like a local plumber buying a billboard on the highway and just crossing his fingers.
Exactly. We call that high-risk marketing. You're putting money into the ether and just hoping for a return.
So what's the antidote to the blimp?
Direct marketing.
Yeah.
Or response-driven marketing.
Okay, define that for us.
It's the discipline where every single dollar you spend must bring back a measurable return rapidly.
So if I put in $1, I need to know exactly how I'm getting 2 or 10 or 20 back.
Right. It's accountable marketing. You can track exactly where every lead came from.
I love that. It takes the emotion out of it.
Completely.
Yeah.
There's this famous question from the legendary copywriter Gary Halbert that perfectly illustrates this.
Oh, I've heard this one. The hamburger stand, right?
Yes. He asks, if you're opening a hamburger stand, what do you need most to succeed?
And people always guess the usual stuff, like, I need the secret sauce, or I need a great location on the beach.
Right, or the best quality beef.
Yeah.
And Halbert delivers the punchline. He says, no, the only thing you need is a starving crowd.
A starving crowd. That is so good. Because if they're starving, they don't care if the bun is a little stale.
Exactly. They just want the solution to their immediate pain.
So let me pose a modern scenario for this.
Sure.
If I'm a business owner and I'm spending money on, Facebook ads or Instagram just to get likes or to build brand awareness,
Right.
am I essentially just renting a tiny digital Goodyear blimp that does absolutely nothing for my bottom line?
That is exactly what you're doing. A digital blimp.
Wow.
You cannot deposit likes in a bank account. Period.
So the ironclad rule for the listener: never spend a single dollar on any marketing or advertising that does not directly and quickly ask the prospect to do something measurable in return.
Absolutely. Ask them to take action.
Okay, so we know we need to ditch the blimp.
Get it.
We know we need a starving crowd. But how do we actually find them?
That's the million-dollar question.
Because we can't just stand on a corner and shout, buy my stuff. We have to know exactly what they are actually starving for.
And that requires decoding the WHO.
Decoding the who.
Yes. You have to know exactly what your perfect customer wants to buy. But here is the trick. It's almost never what they say they want.
Right. So you're selling the transformation, not the commodity.
Exactly. We have to look at the surface want versus the secret private desire.
Let's do a rapid fire breakdown of this because the source material goes into several industries and it's fascinating. Let's start with financial services.
Okay, financial planners. They think they're selling stocks or annuities or retirement plans.
Which is incredibly boring.
Right. Nobody wakes up wanting an annuity. What they're actually selling, what the customer secretly desires, is peace.
Peace of mind.
Specifically, they want to avoid those 3 a.m. cold sweats about outliving their money.
Oh, wow. So if your ad talks about avoiding the 3 a.m. cold sweats instead of wealth accumulation, you win.
Exactly. You speak to the secret fear.
Let's do another one. Lawyers.
The lawyer thinks they're selling legal documents or courtroom hours.
Right.
But the client is scared. The client is secretly buying a hero or an advocate to be in their corner. They want a bodyguard.
That makes total sense. What about a chiropractor, like specifically one targeting an elderly demographic?
Oh, this one is entirely about ego.
Really? Not just getting rid of back pain.
The back pain is the surface want, but secretly, they want to be the envy of their friends.
Wait, really? The envy of their friends.
Think about it. They go out to dinner with their friends, and everyone is falling apart complaining about their joints. This person wants to be the one playing golf, acting like they're 10 years younger. They're buying vitality.
That is so deep. Okay, dentistry.
It's not just pain relief or fixing a cavity. It's selling confidence. It's feeling attractive when you smile.
Okay, what about retail or clothing?
The surface want is a new shirt or deep discount. But secretly, they're buying the feeling of taking on the world looking amazing, feeling powerful.
That's no repair. This is a gritty one.
You're not fixing a car. No one wants to buy a transmission fluid flip.
No, it's just a grudge purchase.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So what you're actually selling is an uninterrupted life.
Ah, right.
Yeah.
Make this problem go away so I can get to work.
Yes. You're selling the convenience of never feeling the breakdown.
Risky.
Unless you are literally starving, you aren't buying food. You are buying an escape, a good time, a celebration.
And finally, info marketing or coaching.
You are never selling information. Information is free online.
So true.
You are selling the dream, the ultimate transformation of their identity.
So listening to all of these, the psychology here is just massive.
It really is. It's the difference between failing and scaling.
And it highlights the danger of what we call me marketing.
Oh, yes. The worst kind.
Like Joe Blow the magician is world-renowned. He has doves.
Right. Nobody cares about Joe's doves.
Exactly. Versus you marketing. Like, imagine a birthday party your child will treasure forever.
100%. People are hesitant to admit their true desires, right? Like the elderly patient wanting to outlast their friends.
Right. They aren't going to say that out loud.
Never. So the marketer must speak to this hidden ego. You have to enter the conversation already happening in their head.
But let me ask a vital ethical question here on behalf of the listener.
Sure.
Because this sounds a little bit like we're playing armchair psychologist.
Yeah.
Is it manipulative to target people's secret egos or their deep-seated fears about 3 a.m. cold sweats?
I'm so glad you asked that because people get hung up on this. It is absolutely not manipulation.
Okay.
It's the ultimate empathy.
How so?
Because you are simply entering the reality they are actually living in. If your product genuinely helps them, you have a moral obligation to speak the language they actually care about.
Right. You're doing them a disservice if you just bore them with technical features they don't understand.
Exactly. If you can stop their 3 a.m. cold sweats, you need to tell them you can stop the 3 a.m. cold sweats. Don't talk about mutual fund yields.
That is such a powerful reframe. So the practical takeaway for you listening right now, audit your current messaging. Look at your website today.
Yes, look at it right now.
Are you selling the commodity, the estate plan, the braces, the oil change?
What?
Or are you selling the deep emotional transformation, family security, raging confidence, and uninterrupted life?
It makes all the difference in the world.
So let's bring this all together. Let's step back and look at the whole picture here.
Let's do it.
Because the soul of this entire chapter, this whole deep dive, is a complete shift in your identity as a business owner.
A total shift.
As long as you view yourself as a purveyor of commodities, someone who just has to chase people down and convince them to buy you are going to be exhausted.
You'll be broke.
You'll be broke and you'll be drowning in a sea of competitors doing the exact same thing.
But the moment you decide to become a magnetic marketer,
yes,
by understanding the deep, secret desires of your specific starving crowd and offering them a measurable, direct response solution instead of flying a useless corporate blimp.
You completely reverse the power dynamic.
Exactly. They raise their hand, they come to you.
You can command premium fees.
And most importantly, the silence ends.
The silence ends. That's the ultimate goal. So, to wrap this up, you now know the psychology of attraction. You know exactly what your WHO is starving for.
But knowing what they want is only half the battle.
Right. Now, you have to actually build the machine to deliver that message. So next time you sit down to work on your business, ask yourself, are my message, my market, and my media perfectly aligned to catch that starving crowd?
That's the big question.
That is definitely a thought worth exploring as you design your own magnetic system. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive.
What you just listened was the beginning of a full audio, way longer, explaining every single chapter of the book. If you would like to keep listening to the end and access to the full audio, you can access it with the link down below in the description and in the pinned comment.